Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Cherry, can you please do a roll call?
Todd Clemens?
Yeah.
Erica Connor?
Yes.
Mary D. Moore?
Here.
Andy Mankey?
Yes.
Art Schneider?
Here.
Craig Wirtz?
Excused.
Jeff Vogel?
Here.
Jill Warner? Here. Cherry Winchowski here.
Okay, this is an open meeting and has been noticed as such. First up, we have citizens' comments. Anybody sign up? Nope, good, all right. Moving on, consent agenda, we have approval of the board minutes of May 8th, 2017, and approval of vouchers numbers 112090 and 112537 in funds 10, 21, 23, 27, 41, 45, 49, 50, 72, and 80, totaling $3 million and change. And receipts for April 2017 in funds 10, 21, 27, 41, 50, and 72, totaling $1 million and change. Are there any questions or concerns regarding this? All right, it's approved by consent. Next up, we have action items. We have resignations, retirements, and appointments.
So you can take a look at your copy of the certified staff changes. It's at your table. It is a change from the one that was in your packet. We have 3 resignations. Amanda Dominguez, 6th grade at Rowan Hills, Michelle Lammers, 4th grade at Prairie View, and Jared Meyer, social studies at the high school. And then for new hires, we have Nikki Billings, business ed at Mcgonagall High School, Megan Yoakum, tech specialist at Clarendon Avenue Elementary. That's our new term for librarian. Christine Perkins, who's technology specialist at Prairie View and Eagleville. And then Mark Soini, tech ed at Mcgonagall High School. What's the change there, Nick? I thought.
We finalized Nikki Billings' contract this morning. So.
Gotcha, thanks.
Okay.
So that was the only addition from what was in the packet.
Okay. All right, I'll make a motion to approve those. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any any discussion? All right, hearing none.
I just want
Oh,
to thank
go ahead.
Michelle Lammers,
Okay,
because she's been here a long time. How many years has she been here?
I think 20 or 21. Is that right?
I'd have to look that up, but
Been a long time.
yeah, she's been here.
A
Yep,
long time,
you
and
bet.
she was the librarian for a while, and
Right, so if I have to think about this, but she started out, I believe, at section, and then came to Rowan Hills, taught 2nd and 3rd grade when I was there, and then eventually went to Prairie View to be the librarian, and then this year she was in a job share at 4th grade at Prairie View, and so her husband Bruce had retired last year, and now she's going to join him.
so the others have, the others are good too, but
Oh,
she's been here a
absolutely.
really long time, so I think
Right,
it's
and we.
appropriate to say thank you.
Yes, absolutely, and Jared have found another position in a school district close to Madison, where he's joining his girlfriend, and then Amanda Dominguez, we included her letter, resignation in the packet, and that's due to her desire to stay home with her baby.
That was a nice letter.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
really nice letter, yep, that's why we wanted to make sure we included that one.
mhm. All right, any other discussion?
Yeah, Nick, did you have anything to add about any of those people?
No.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries.
All I would say is that all 4 of those positions are not necessarily easy to fill, and we're really excited about all those candidates. So.
All right, next up, literacy staff development, plan 7th through 8th grade.
So this is just the follow-up to the last meeting for grades 7 and 8. I included a abbreviated summary on page 7 of your packet. We already discussed it at the last meeting, so this is just the final approval of the purchases and the staff development plan. So any questions?
The only question I had was, do you feel, obviously you feel or not, but that it's enough staff development?
Yes, for the middle school,
Mhm.
only because we spent a significant amount of time on the front end this year going into it. So we met as a department on about a monthly basis already, all school year, prepping for this. So I know the professional development total is low, but they're at the point where they don't need additional in-servicing by bringing people in. We've done that already, so now the majority of the staff development, I would say, is actually in the last line, staff payment for training and work time. So they're at the point now where we need to actually create the curriculum documents that will go along with the new curriculum this summer, not necessarily me paying to bring more presenters in. That we've done. We've had facilitators in from Cardinal Stritch. We've done the site visits to the other schools. So that's why that PD line is so much lower for 7th and 8th grade.
So they've been training for this kind of education for a year already?
Right.
Okay, any other questions? All right, do I have a motion
I'd
to?
like to make a motion, we pass.
A second?
Second.
Okay, Erica? All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
All right, next up, benefit consultant approval.
So page 8 there is the 25-month contract, or just a little bit more than 2-year contract to work with National Insurance Services. We've talked about this before. If you have any questions, I can answer them right now. If not, just looking for a motion to work with them.
Do I have a motion? Okay.
What were we paying for our last consultants?
We were paying an embedded fee that was inside of our monthly rates that we were paying to our health insurance carrier. It worked out to be about $10,000 a month, or $120,000 a year. So we're saving significantly with this change here.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We'll give it to
So who was that one? Who won that one?
Have that one.
No,
Oh, Jill actually was.
All right, Jill wins.
I'm giving it to Jill.
We have to start flipping coins.
Oh,
I'll just eat chocolate.
okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Okay, motion carries. Next up is Maxwell Street Days contract approval.
So, same thing, we gave you the contract last time. Any questions? We take that 1/3 share that we get, and we award three scholarships in the amount of $2,000 annually.
So this is more formalizing what we've done in the
Yep.
past.
Yeah, we haven't formalized an agreement, so we're gonna bring that back, and we get a $1 million liability proof of insurance from the firefighters, so we just kinda make it a little more standard and legit, make sure we cover our bases.
I make a motion to approve this contract.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, WIAA membership.
So each year at this time of the year, we have the board approve our membership with the WIAA. We have no changes, as my memo states. There's no co-op changes, no new additional sports. And because the WIAA is doing okay right now financially, they don't charge us a fee. So
What has been charged in the past?
there was no fee last year either.
Okay.
And I'd have to look
Okay.
back. I can email that
Just
to you
curious,
guys.
that's all, more than anything.
That's a great question, and I don't even remember anymore.
Okay.
I'll find out, though.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to approve the membership?
I move.
Okay, second? Second. Okay, motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. All right, next up, 5-year non-discrimination plan.
So Tim Lemke's here to review the plan, which he was here, not last meeting, but the previous meeting, right, to talk a little bit about?
Yep. Yeah, so a couple meetings ago, I came and just prefaced that we were running through our 5-year evaluation for pupil non-discrimination. I provided in your packet there a pretty lengthy report that we will, upon board approval, want to post on our district website. But then that also serves as our proof to DPI that we also went through this process, collected data, analyzed that data, and then also made recommendations from the data in which we collected. So the general flow of that packet that you guys have received was a general overview and introduction of all of the concepts covered within the 5-year evaluation. But then the main components of that, again, were method, practices, curriculum, and materials used in school counseling. Participation trends, patterns, and extracurricular and recreational activities, and then trends and patterns in awarding scholarship and recognition by the district, with an overall theme running throughout those three areas of looking at board and district policy and some of the plans that we have in place to make sure that we're non-discriminatory in terms of our practices. So if you guys have any particular questions about that document.
Is there a criteria we have to meet?
You just have to reflect upon the data that you collect for each area, and that's done by, a lot of it's done through Infinite Campus now for us, to be honest with you, so we can pull all of those trends and data from that, and then it's just analyzing participation percentages. And it's very encouraging to see that our participation trends for a lot of these things are very close to what our enrollment data is. We're within a percentage point or two for most of our participation percentages, which is fantastic. A lot of districts I know have some disparities, which are pretty glaring in some of those areas, but we're pretty spot on with what our enrollment is. So yes, this report is very comparable and similar. A lot of districts provide the same structure and format to satisfy the requirement of the 5-year non-discriminatory plan.
So now we don't have to do this again for 5 years, is that what you're saying?
Correct. Absolutely correct. So really what we'd be looking for would be for you guys to approve that we've gone through the 5-year evaluation, approve the document, and then with that, we would also post this document on the Pupil Services page and on our district website, so that community members and everybody within the district has the ability to view the final product of the document.
Any other questions?
Well, it looks like data's collected every year, but the report is only done every 5?
Correct, yes. Yes.
And are all the schools in the state, I mean, they're not all on the same schedule? I mean, they kind of
This
parse it
year,
out over a 5-year period, so it rotates amongst the schools?
this year I believe was a little unique in that all districts did this report.
Okay.
Correct.
Any other questions? All right, any motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the report.
Okay, Chair is a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion is second. Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is committee reports. Learning Committee, PEP grant.
So Nancy Movrich and Ben, are you part of the presentation too? Are here tonight to talk about the PEP grant and changes in our physical education curriculum. And I think everybody knows Nancy, longtime Phi-Ed instructor at Parkview Middle School. who-
Long time.
She did, or she is in the process of retiring.
She's still retiring, okay.
All right, so I'll kick things off. One of my duties in my new role has been to help oversee our PEP grant, our district's participation in the PEP grant, which comes to an end this year. And so as we complete our final reports, get all of our T's crossed and I's dotted with the PEP grant, it was an appropriate time to come to you and share some of what we've done. So you've now been introduced or reintroduced to Nancy, so she's here to tell you a little bit about how we have used this PEP grant to improve physical education in the district. And really, maybe the most exciting part out of this is our curriculum adoption with physical education as well. So I'll control the slides and take it away.
Great, thanks. And good evening. For those of you who are not on the board and don't remember, in 2013, we applied for the Carol White PEP grant. And there were hundreds of schools that applied for this grant. And 67 of us received it, and Mcgonagall Area School District was one of them. And I feel that it's a perfect opportunity to thank the board and Sean and Nick for such a tremendous opportunity that we've had as a physical education department. And it's just been such a great experience for us, and we've learned so much along the way. And it would not have been possible if we didn't have you believing in us. And I know there's two people here that are not here tonight, and that is Dr. Strobel and Mary Koski, and they provided such leadership for us, and basically just said yes, go ahead, and they helped us along the way, and we were able to do it. Also, in the fourth quarter, we are in the fourth quarter, and it is probably one of the toughest parts of the PEP grant because we have final reporting to do. We have to line up all our budget material, and, you know, I can't say enough about the enthusiasm of Ben to jump into the role after Mary retired. And he has just been such a great person to work with as well. And as well as sitting behind me, I have one person from the fire department. Fire people are so busy this time of the year with their coaching responsibilities and everything else. But the fire department, to everybody, has been a part of this. There is not one person that stands out or has done work over others, and I just want that to be known. It's been a growth experience, and we have done so much. So on that note, very quickly, I'm going to go over, just to refresh your memory for the board members that were not here in 2013, we had 4 objectives for our PEP grant. The first one was we wanted to look at our curriculum, see what was out there, and line it with our new national and state standards at the time. We wanted to improve staff development. We haven't had a lot of interaction with other FIED people, hearing all the buzzwords that were going on out there, seeing what was going on, and we wanted to get our staff out there. If we're going to redo things, we really wanted to see what is it that we're missing and gather all those pieces together so we can put together a product that we thought was the best for Mcgonagall Area School District. Number 3, we came up with common assessments and protocols to document student proficiency, and this is new in physical education. It's probably not new all over the board in terms of the other content areas, and we felt that we are an important part of education, and so we wanted to follow those lines. And number 4, we wanted to improve student knowledge in fitness and wellness. And we are moving the physical education program from the 20th century, which is more sport and game centered, into the 21st century, which is a kind of a blend of sports and games and also health and fitness, which this day and age with the kids' lifestyles the way they are, we need to have both. And so we wanted to bring that portion of the curriculum into our product for Mcgonagall. And the last 2 objectives were actually PEP grant objectives. We needed to form common goals for nutrition, and so we were invited to bring the Mcgonagall Area School District Food Service Department in with us. And again, Pam Harris is wonderful to work with. The food staff was all received their training with smiling faces, and we did some really good programs together throughout the course of the PEP grant. And lastly, we wanted to reestablish the wellness committee. So we had a wellness committee, it met periodically, and one of the PEP grant goals was to bring back a wellness committee that met on a regular basis and formed a more comprehensive program in physical education. So it wasn't just what we did in the gym, it was what we were doing in our community, how our partnerships were helping us promote health and fitness for the kids. So those were the objectives in a nutshell. And if we take a look at our successes very quickly, some of the things that we've done as far as our curriculum, we took a look at our movement time. We put pedometers on our kids. We are now going to strap heart rate monitors on our kids and actually see what kind of movement time they get during gym class. The second objectives, we came up with common motor assessments. As you know, motor skills are very important. We're not overlooking those. And we actually built rubrics at every level, and the kids are tested on those across the board in every school every year, and in grades kindergarten through 6th grade, they're actually recorded on the report card. The third bullet point, we now have common fitness testing. We do the Presidential Youth Fitness Program test, K-12, twice a year, and that will continue. We are looking at our scope and sequence with physical literacy. Literacy is a big buzzword, as you know, in education, and we felt physical education is no different. We certainly have vocabulary in physical education that's quite different from other academic areas. And we also thought intentional fitness, which is fitness that is deliberately brought to the classrooms to help improve the 5 components of fitness. We felt that was very important to bring into our class. So it wasn't about kids getting out and moving and just learning sports and games. It was about learning how to be physically fit for life. And lastly, We looked at all our standards, our state standards and our national standards, which are quite similar, and we made sure that when we wrote our curriculum, we lined everything up. Second objective, that was professional development, and as you can see, the long list of professional development, we sent people to the East Coast, to the West Coast. We had trainers come in from Seattle. We picked the best of the best and tried to, again, bring all the pieces together so that we formulated the best program that we could possibly do, thanks to the PEP grant. Next objective, common assessments and protocols to document student proficiency. We purchased a program called WellNet, and it's a database where we will store all physical education test scores, and they are able to follow the student up throughout the chain. Teachers are able to go into the document and look and see how kids are doing in the past, how they're doing present, and how hopefully the teachers that have them the next round will be able to take a look and see how they're doing as well. We came up with common age appropriate rubrics. Again, that's motor skills. We took a look and felt what was actually appropriate at each level for kids. When do we teach and test kids on skipping, hopping, jumping, running, bench pressing, squatting, and we have all those components are written into our curriculum, as well as written assessments. And the written assessments are mainly on intentional fitness, so we're not really testing the kids on how high is the basketball net and how long is the volleyball court. We're testing them on how do you stay physically fit for life. How would you improve your cardiovascular fitness? Those are the kinds of things that we're asking kids. Those are the things they need to know to be fit for life. Next objective, we wanted to improve their knowledge on fitness and wellness, and I think I've touched on this before. We had 2 partial curriculums approved last year and the previous year. That was the Spark curriculum and the 5 for Life curriculum, and they are primarily intentionally based fitness. Those were the parts that we felt were missing in our curriculum, and those are the parts that we felt that when we went out there and we attended conferences, those were the best of the best. So we brought them into our curriculum. We also built a fitness center at Parkview. If you haven't seen it, you should come over and see it. It's great. And so now the kids have a lead-up step before they get to the high school, which is an even better facility. We can teach them functional fitness and weight training basics before they actually get to the high school. We've also brought technology into physical education. All the teachers have iPads, they have Apple TVs, they're using technology every day in the classroom. I know you know all the students have pedometers. We have picked up pedometers at Pick and Save because they know, oh, this is a pedometer, it's gotta be a Mcgonagall Area School District student that had it and lost it. And we also are bringing in heart rate monitors. That's the last piece of the puzzle that we felt needed to be in place. So that is coming. We actually are having training on Wednesday and Thursday this week. Number 5, forming common goals in nutrition. Again, we incorporated the curriculum Healthier Kids Challenge and Balance My Day. We had the food service staff trained so they know what the kids are learning. They are well equipped to try to gently nudge the kids to eat their fruits and vegetables. We've offered a wide variety now of fruits and vegetables on the lunch plan. We did a number of taste tests at all school buildings throughout the course of 3 years. And it was interesting to see how the kids have changed from what is hummus, yuck, I don't like hummus, to now when are we going to have hummus again on our menu. So that was a nice change to see. And as I said, again, 5 for Life and Spark, they also include nutrition education for our kids in our FIDE curriculum. And lastly, the Wellness Committee. And this was a really nice bonus that was run by Ron Schlicht. And we had community members a part of the Wellness Committee. We met regularly, and we have formed some very nice relationships between the Mcgonagall YMCA, Town of Mcgonagall Rec Department, and also the Village of Mcgonagall. And it's very nice to know that the Wellness Committee will continue, and with even a broader focus as far as bringing a whole community, whole child model in for student health and wellness. So that was just the synergy that we were able to ignite is just really starting. And I think that that's a nice piece that will be in place for a long, long time. And just some highlights of things we've done that because of the PEP grant, we now have fundraising that is no longer selling candy and wrapping paper. We actually have physical activity-based fundraising where the kids are doing exercise, and parents, grandparents are pledging money for those kids to be able to do so many minutes of activity. And the kids are excited. The kids are taking ownership in it, and it's been another nice surprise because of the PEP grant. We have Wednesday morning wake up and early fitness program at Parkview. The high school has had early morning lifting, and I know that program has also continued. We have a 100-mile club where the kids walk or run 100 miles during the school year to win prizes and T-shirts for their extra activity outside of gym class. We have the 100-mile summer club, and if you were at the first football game of the year last year, you saw all the kids run across the field. The kids that participated and pledged to get their 100 miles in over the summer. And that we hope that program has been in place for 2 years, and we hope that it continues. This past week with the Don Skrapinski, we also had the family fitness hike where the families were asked and invited to go on the fitness trail, the MHS fitness trail. We had QR codes set up so they got little fitness messages along the way. And I know that program was a success as well, and hopefully will continue. We have the Mcgonagall newsletter, which is health and fitness based. We've done taste testing. We have the fitness center at Mcgonagall. We have woodway curves at MHS. If you've not tried the woodway curves, I highly suggest you do that. They are non-motorized treadmills, and they're really awesome. So get over there and try them. And we also have brought in functional fitness equipment at the elementary level. So we're teaching kids about, you can have a sophisticated health club, but you don't need it. There's a lot of functional pieces of equipment, AKA even just a floor, is all you need to be physically fit. So we teach them the whole gambit of health and fitness all the way up. And lastly but not leastly, and you thought we were all about just all the shiny new equipment that we got via the PEP grant, but this is the mother lode of curriculum guides that you get to, we're going to leave here for you to look at. And we have worked very hard, have brought trainers in to, as I said, bring the best of the best forward from Mcgonagall Area School District. And we think we've put together a very solid framework. It is a comprehensive physical education program, so we take a look not only at what we do in the gym, but also how we can filter health and physical education, physical activity outside of the classroom into our community, into before and after school programs, what students can do outside with their families to be physically fit, because it really is, it takes a village. We know that 1 hour of phy-ed every other day will not do it. So we're looking at lots of ways to be able to expand that. It is standards aligned. It includes all the resources and all the materials that we have purchased through the PEP grant is all provided in here. There's a very, very low cost sustainability to this curriculum. Everything, like I said, has been purchased through the PEP grant except for a couple of licenses that we need to have yearly renewals on, and that is minimal. So another bonus for the PEP grant, the things that we've been able to do. There are also additions in here, some of the things that we've added, like our testing, our rubrics, they're also in here. You can find them. We have our common assessments all lined up, and we have our power standards in here as well. There are over 450 standards in physical education, which is a lot. And so we were able to pull out about 120 that we said were non-negotiable, and those are the things that are absolutely essential in what we felt our kids needed to get at every level, and they are also in here. And the MHS courses are all now standards aligned. They had adopted their curriculum, I believe, 2 or 3 years ago, and now we've actually looked at those courses and we've aligned them to our state standards. So that, in a nutshell, is what this is. So I hope you look at it. Any questions? Yeah,
Just a couple.
good.
So at the end of all this,
Mhm.
how do we compare in relation to other districts in the area as far as our physical education programs? Are we setting the standard? Are we right there with them? How are we, do you think?
I would like to say that we are setting the standard here. I don't know anybody who has this comprehensive of a curriculum, and I know that we've had shared quite a bit of information with districts as well, surrounding districts. I would say that as far as how our students do it compare in relation to the other districts, I think that we are with other districts or quite possibly ahead. Our final set of numbers for the PEP grant, as far as student activity and improvement, are not in yet. But I'm hoping that they are up there.
And the only other one I had was where we're at, we don't want to just have that fade away over time now that the PEP grant is gone. So are we planning for how we will sustain everything and?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have a sustainability program in here, and the nice thing about it is that we have built in sustainability in our program. We have purchased things that are lasting, and actually this is the reason for the curriculum, because we knew that once the PEP grant went away, it would be easy to fall back to what we've been doing if we didn't have a curriculum that would move us forward. And so everything that we have in here has been compiled collectively as a 15-person physical education department. We had many discussions. We were not always on the same page with a lot of things, but I think that we've come to a great understanding that all of us have something that we feel is a workable curriculum that everybody will support.
And in terms of the materials, just to add on to that too, as we finished up our planning budget-wise this year, we also tried to front-load licenses that we could pay with PEP grant this year, even though they might extend 2-3 years down the road as well. Trying again to look at that sustainability, knowing we have the money now, let's try to use that to allow these things to continue to take place in future years as well.
So with the licenses, is there some sort of continuing ed involved in that? Or, I mean, making sure that we're up to date on everything? Or is that license just something that's purchased?
The licenses will include any updates, and I think that our staff is very comfortable with WellNet, and that's the database we use, with the curriculum 5 for Life and Spark, and those programs are sustainable. The online license, where the updates can be continued or not, and as Bennett said, we did license several years forward, so for the first couple of years we are safe. And as you know, every curriculum does change a little bit, and I'm confident that we have the changes that we will be able to handle with very little financial burden on the district at all.
Jerry?
So, from what I understand, before all this, there wasn't a curriculum that all the BIED teachers followed that were the same on all levels, and so now there is. And so as new people come in, will the current people train them, or do you know what I'm trying to get to here?
Yes, I do. We had a curriculum, we did, and I think the hard part was that because of equipment, because of lack of staff development in physical education, it was easy to do your own thing, especially at the elementary levels. The schools, there wasn't a lot of time prior to our PD time now where the staff can regularly get together and synergize over what is happening. They were on their own a lot, and I think that we didn't have a lot of common pieces. Physical fitness testing was done one way at one school, one way at another. And that was the big thing when we got together. We said, what do we need to bring the best program to the students at Parkview, at Clarendon, at Big Bend, and how are we going to do this? So this curriculum includes that. And it is so massive. I don't know if you've ever seen a curriculum. When I actually saw how big it was after we were finished, I couldn't believe it myself. But so, and that was the point. So when we have new people coming in, this will get them going. All the materials are here for them so that they will be able to have a start. And certainly I would hope that with professional development time that the FIAD staff will be able to meet and help one another, because it is a big process. But I think from my standpoint, being in physical education 38 years, the stuff that the young people are coming out with, I mean, their training is wonderful. And, you know, have learned so much from them. And if you were to see the curriculum that I started with, we've just made great strides. And I think this is 21st century, and I think physical education is going to stay this way. I think with our lifestyles, I can't imagine that we can ever go back to a sport and game-centered program. I think you need to have a blend to, if you really want to see sustainability in physical fitness and wellness of our students, we have to have a blend of both, and this does it.
So will there be more of the collaboration? I guess that's what I'm asking, so that it'll be, like you said it, each school building had their own thing. So now will it be more consistent across all of Mcgonagall? I mean, was that
Yes.
part of what
Yes.
is accomplished through this?
Yes.
So I think like Nancy said, one of the biggest factors in that was the difference in equipment. So we had FIAD teachers at each building, their budget to replenish their equipment was site-based. So whatever each principal doled out to the FIAD department was how equipment was purchased for that FIAD department. Could have been very different, and they could have had really old, give me an example of equipment, very old beach balls that they couldn't really use, whereas another school had a brand new set and they could, use them for all sorts of different activities. So I think one of the biggest advantages of this PEP grant was being able to make all the
Equalize.
equipment consistent between schools that supports the curriculum that we now have.
And it
So
will
there's
that,
there's no reason why you can't do all of the activities specified at each grade level, because every building now has the equipment to do it.
and will that remain the same? So like you said, if the principals all know that we all kind of keep this the same? I'm just saying, like you said. if it
And
goes down
I think the great thing about the Wednesday staff development time is that the FIAD teachers do have a chance to meet now and talk. And before that time, I think it was hard for people to get together. Unfortunately, the role of a FIAD teacher is also many times the role of a coach. So after school time, which is a lot of staff development time, the coaches were pulled in other places. So I think that time has been very valuable to us. I know it has, along with the PEP grant time that we've had. So I see, yes, it should sustain itself better than it ever has been.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Oh, goodness, thank you.
Yeah, I want to also thank Nancy for, this wouldn't have happened if you hadn't shepherded it through. So thank you.
Thank you. I thank you for believing in me and the entire physical education team, and and saying yes to us and helping to support us, because it has been, like I said, a tremendous opportunity and experience. I have learned so much, not even from being out there and meeting so many professional people that have offered so much to our district, but with the people I work with. It's been great. So thank you so much.
I'd just like to say you did a great job.
Thank
having
you.
worked with you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Thanks.
And so I just want to note that we'll ask for approval of this new curriculum at the next board meeting.
I'll
And
look
during the
through it.
next 2 weeks,
Oh, we are all gonna
and
read that.
any members of the public that would like to come and review the curriculum prior to approval may come to the district office anytime between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. to review it. Thank you.
Should just record that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Youth at Risk Behavior Survey.
So as you know, Andy Trudell and Jim Darren were here a couple of meetings ago to talk about changes with the activity code, adding breathalyzers, and then also possibly drug screens for our students who participate in athletics activities and park in our parking lot. I thought that it was important that we get some data to show the board where we're at with our drug and alcohol use with our students, and also drug and alcohol violations. And so Ben compiled some data for us, and I'll let him explain what we have here, and then we'll take any questions that you might have. Or if you want more data on something, we'll get that for you too.
All right, so in your packet, you have a memo from me. And on the first page of that memo is the information that Sean alluded to from the Wisconsin Youth Risk Behavior Survey. That's a survey that we administered to our freshmen and juniors, and it's designed to be anonymous and voluntary. So hopefully we get good information out of this. And on the bottom of that memo, you see a graph showing the past several years' worth of data across a couple of different areas. Students that are self-reporting drinking alcohol in the past 30 days, students who are reporting binge drinking, which they define as 5 or more drinks in a row in the past 30 days, using marijuana, using over-the-counter drugs, or report attending school under the influence of alcohol or other illegal drugs over the past 12 months. And so you can see the trends across that data. I'll note that the binge drinking category was not on this previous year's survey, or at least I didn't have the data for that. So that's why that bar or that line ends at 2015. If you go to the second page, this is actual data that we have in Infinite Campus. These are actual behavior events that are drug-related, alcohol-related, or tobacco-related, and that have been tracked in our system over the past several years as well. And I took this data the same time period as the Youth Risk Behavior Survey data as well. And so you can see over the past several years what those different events look like both at Parkview and at Mcgonagall High School. And the way that campus tracks these events is truly just drug-related, alcohol-related, or tobacco-related. And that's as deep as we can drill just on a broad level, if you will. Are there any questions about that data, anything that we can answer?
I have a question. Can you, how many, you explained that it's freshmen and juniors and that it's voluntary and anonymous. How many students responded? Is that in here? Did you talk about that? I know you show the percentages, but is it 50 students, 100 students, 200? Just curious what the
I want to say it's about,
benchmark is.
I think it was historically about 500 or so students, if my memory serves, but I can get that exact number for you as well.
Just curious how it, because these percentages mean more if you know what your basis was, so it's just
Right.
valuable information as we go through this.
Absolutely, I can get the actual numbers of respondents back. What I was interested in is that those percentages are
Trends.
pretty steady from year to year,
Okay.
which does tell me that that data is probably pretty valid regardless of the actual number of respondents, but I can get that specific information to you.
So you're talking 500 over the both classes. We end up roughly 400 in each class.
Right.
So you're getting about 50% of the kids responding to the survey.
I think so, Sherry, but
Yeah.
let me go back
I mean,
and
I'm
look.
just wondering
and I
if
can-
that's what I understand.
I can add a little bit on that. And as a matter of fact, Haley, have you taken the youth at risk behavior survey since you've been at Mcgonagall High School? So you're a junior now. Did you take it when you were a freshman? Do you recall? And did you take it this year? Yeah, please.
I don't remember taking it as a freshman, but I do remember taking it as a junior.
So the university, so first of all, we started administering this survey. Now you have to think back, for those of you who have been on the school board for a while, another grant program that we're involved in at Mcgonagall High School was the Safe and Supportive Schools Grant. I don't know if you remember that. And that's a state program. We were administered we were given $200,000 because of our high suspension
I
rate.
do remember that.
Yeah, okay. And so then a few other issues at Mcgonagall High School that stuck out, and so we applied for the grant, and we were given some money to help improve our school climate, decrease bullying, improve school safety, those kinds of things. And so one of the things that we had to do was administer this survey. So this is part of the University of Michigan, and they come in and actually administer this for us. And so they select the students out of the freshman class and the junior class to participate. So it's not like we ask students, would you like to participate in this survey? And then, of course, those students that are users might decline to participate. Instead, they are selected, and then first a letter goes home. Parents are asked if their son or daughter could participate, or if they want to decline. Then they select them. after that. So
Random? Is it random?
it's a random survey. Yeah, it's a random selection.
Random.
Excuse me.
So
Mhm. But I'm sorry, I don't remember how many are selected either.
But it isn't that, okay, we're doing this test this day, do you wanna do it?
No,
Either way.
no, nothing like that.
I do remember now that you brought it up.
Mhm. So, and then the questions are there. And if you recall, we brought these questions to you. And again, for those of you who were on the board at that time, and there were a few other questions that the board was uncomfortable with, and we took a couple out. But for the most part, these are the questions that we've been asking since 2011.
Looking at this, just at Parkview, there seems to be especially this year. I mean,
I think that answers my,
is
are
there
we gonna
any?
test at the Parkview?
So this gives you,
That,
Or did they really not bear?
Say that again?
On 15-16, did red and gray not print, or is this really
Yeah,
all
it's
there was?
just really all there was. Yeah,
Wow.
that's all there was on campus.
So these kids were at 15, 16, these kids were one level, then they went the next level and they went skyrocket. It isn't like a class, you know, like a group of kids that had issues or whatever. It's like these kids that did nothing all of a sudden just, oh, well, we'll try this year.
Well, they got older.
Was it 7th and 8th graders
Mhm.
take the test?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, no, this isn't a test. This is
this
actual.
is actual.
Yeah, this
These
is
are the
actual.
yeah, these are
So
the
that's-
incidents.
Oh,
These
they're
are the
actual
students
Yeah.
that
incidents,
were,
disciplinary incidents.
Yes.
But I did look at this and I kind of freaked out for a little bit, and then I looked at what the numbers were.
Right.
So the numbers of incidents are
Right.
12.
yeah, and I
it's
think
not-
that's
it's-
important to look at that.
It's not that, this is not a percentage, this is okay, but like in 15, 16, there were only 2 incidences, and then there were 12. Well, yes, that's a considerable more, but it's not 50. And then in the high school, it's a little more than that. I mean, 40's a pretty high number.
Yeah, and
But-
as Nick was pointing out to me as well, too, because he asked for clarification, too. So if an incident involved 3 students, is it counted once as a single incident or 3 times? I went through and actually counted this as an incident being per student.
Right.
So if there were 3 students in a single incident, it's counted in here 3 times.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Right.
Yep.
Because infant campus can be a little bit goofy in pulling that data, but we actually went through and pulled by individual students per incident.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
So as we move forward with the changes, with the activity code and possible breathalyzer, possible drug screening, we want to make sure that you guys have this data to give you an idea of how many students that we're talking about actually have violations. And at the high school, you can see the gray with the tobacco violations. A lot of that is with vaping,
Mhm.
so that is sort of been a thorn in our side.
I think just with the data, I think it's almost necessary that we implement like random drug testing and random breathalyzing, not only for like the safety of everybody, but the morality of like the students coming in and like setting the standard for the Parkview students. I'm just.
And so, Haley, you're part of student government, right?
Yes.
And so Emily talked a little bit about that a month or so ago, and she's part of student government also,
Mhm.
right? And so we know that you guys have had some concerns about homecoming, and
Yeah.
and we'll talk more about that here in the next couple months with possible breathalyzers for the dances.
Where will this go with, like, obviously the highest situation or challenge right now is the tobacco. Neither one of those tests do anything to address that. I mean, that's the biggest problem here. You have all of 10 drug-related and 40.
So I think we have to convince kids that vaping is as bad as smoking a cigarette.
Well, and I know that, but all I'm saying is, I don't want to go overboard on the other things when really it doesn't appear to be that. That's all I'm saying. But I'm surprised at the number.
Well, we wanted to show you the incidents, but we also wanted to show you what the students were reporting. So, you know, it's
going up again. I mean,
it's clear that we have a number of students from the youth at risk behavior survey, that we have a number of students that are using.
Mhm.
So they may not always be under the influence at school or have incidents during the school day, but it doesn't mean that it's not happening outside of the school day. And some of those things that we're talking about, a breathalyzer at a dance, or a drug screen, activity codes, those are for outside of the school day also.
As we work towards the implementation or recommendation of how we ultimately approve breathalyzers, et cetera, I think it's important that we get some perspective on how we compare. So is that information that you have access to throughout, I mean, and what do you compare us to? You can't compare us to MPS. Do you compare us to our schools in our district? But I would assume that as we go through that, we will have that information. Or is that not accessible to you?
So, I don't know that.
I don't think that the 45 kids on, what's our high school enrollment,
1,600.
16? I mean, none of this is good, but.
I don't know what is publicly available
Yeah,
from
I'm
other
just
districts, but I'll find out
curiosity.
and see. I know, like, the incidents in Infinite Campus, those are not things that I believe that were publicly mandated to report, so most other schools probably wouldn't either, but I'll check. Let me see what I can find.
DPI doesn't publish anything
I don't know if they do
We-
by
we can
district.
check.
Yeah, but we can check.
as we go through this process.
Then
think
we
it's a
can
great
take a
question.
look at results for the Youth at Risk Behavior Survey nationwide and probably statewide, but I don't know that other districts release their specific information, but we can explore that. But that's a
Good
good
question.
request.
Do we do anything, or what is done with the results of this hefty questionnaire here?
Yeah, so, again, when we had the Safe and Supportive Schools grant, this information, the staff would take a look at the data, and then we did do a number of activities at MHS to address the various different aspects of this. So, for example, some of this deals with bullying, and because of the Safe and Supportive Schools grant and concerns about climate, we initiated the Mcgonagall Way, the PBIS initiative at MHS. We did a number of activities to address some of these questions. I think closer to the end of the survey, talk about or asking students if they, if any adult at the high school cares about them, or if they feel like they belong at MHS. And so we did a number of activities to address that also.
Are there
Save
results of
activities.
these tabulated? Like, could we see results, or are we not able to see that? I'd be curious as to what the
Sure.
answers to these questions are.
So the specific results for each question.
Yeah. With no big rush.
Yeah,
I'm
we
just
can.
curious.
Yeah, yeah, that's,
As they write it down.
Is it,
Okay.
it's done electronically, right? Someone sits and
Yes.
tells you, okay.
Yeah, we won't have to tally it up
no,
ourselves.
No, that's what I'm saying, and we don't want you to go, we used to have to do that, Sean.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like-
I remember that.
no, but the data is actually reported in the form of a PowerPoint with all the graphs, so there is a little bit of hand tabulation that goes into it, but yeah, we have the data.
Okay, so
Okay.
Ben will be doing it, but not Sean.
All right, Art?
No, and I agree. I'd like to see the results. And also, when we're worried about comparing to other districts, you know, there's districts, neighboring districts that are having big issues. And I think to see if we look great compared to the other ones is not necessarily the approach we should be taking. We don't want the problem that some of these districts have right now. And so there is a trend, and there are, you know, when it comes to over-the-counter or alcohol or drug usage, it is going up in this state. And I just think we'd be kidding ourselves if we weren't trying to put a stop to it or prevent it, even if we compare well to any other district. You know, we don't need the issues that certain districts have right now, so.
I agree with Art as well.
Yeah, I'd just like to point, these are the ones we've caught.
Right.
And as I sit at the pickup at the high school and watch kids vape as they walk out the door, we're not catching all of them. So there, for every one of these, 2 or 3 more. So,
It's unfortunate in this day and age that it's still as much of an issue as it is, given all the, because going back a long time ago, in smoking at school was an issue back when I was in high school. And
It was legal back
He
then,
was
right?
still rolling his.
yeah, they were still rolling. Thank you for that. But, I mean, it doesn't mean it shouldn't be addressed. It's just surprising that, given everything that we know now compared to what we knew then, it's still something that's an issue.
And the other thing I think too, Sean, is when we're looking at the alcohol testing and the drug testing possibilities down the road, I talked to Jason Steinbrenner, our school resource officer, when we first had this brought to our attention 2 board meetings ago, and Jason wasn't aware of it. So can we involve Jason in that as well? Because obviously he's going to be at the front of it, you know, in the event that we ask somebody to oversee this, run it, help us administer it. So I think Jason should be, you know, involved as well.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you.
Thanks, Ben.
Next up, we have the 912 Literacy Staff Development Plan.
So there's a short memo on page 73 of your packet. That's right, it's on page 73. This is just the last of my informational updates on our district-wide literacy work. And so we are starting the same process that we've been going through at the elementary and the middle school with the high school. So to kick that off, well, first let me back up. So the high school will implement a new English curriculum in 1819 to coincide with the new schedule and the completion of the renovation. And so that gives us all of next year to work through this process, the same process that we've worked through with the middle school this current year, since they're implementing this fall. And so just to get a even better kickoff of this process, I've already started meeting with the high school English department. I've attended a couple of their department meetings to start laying some groundwork and start getting the department members thinking about what directions we may go with high school English curriculum. And then last week, we met in shifts because I had to pull them with subs. So there's about, I don't know, there's what, 14 members of the English department. So I had to pull half in the morning and half in the afternoon. And we met with Rhonda Schoonover. She's a professor at Cardinal Stritch, and she's the facilitator that I used with the middle school staff to go through this process of curriculum development and renewal. And we started those conversations a little bit more in depth, getting them to think about some of these things going into the summer so that when we get back into it in August, they've had some time to really think and have some ideas starting to percolate about the directions we could move. I think the direction that we went, K-8, is going to obviously inform what we do at the high school. In addition, we also have to keep in mind what the next step is after high school for many of our students. And so exactly how that applies to high school courses, specific AP courses, I think is very much up in the air, just because I don't know that the workshop approach that we're going to at the younger grades lends itself to an AP prep course very well, where there are required texts that are going to be tested on the AP test. So obviously we're going to run a little bit bigger gamut at the high school, but we've already started those conversations. That's really what I wanted to let you know, is that we're being proactive by starting those conversations, 16 months ahead of time with that group, so that we can take the beginning of next school year to really refine what English instruction at Mcgonagall High School should look like moving forward, and then take the second half of next school year to really narrow down on materials that will support that instructional framework. And that's really the right way to go about an adoption process. It's easy to solicit a set of materials from publishers and bring a group together and have boxes all around the room and just look at what looks the best and just say, yeah, let's go with that. That looks cool. And instead, what we're trying to do is to do this the right way and really develop an instructional framework first, and then deliberately choose materials that supports that framework of what we want to accomplish. So that's my update. So obviously, there's more to come on that as we go through.
Any questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Nick.
Next up is Finance and Facilities, the MHS project update.
Yeah, Kurt's here.
All right. Just two items I want to point out on the construction progress for the high school. First one, just to give you an update that over the last couple of weeks, with the school year coming to an end here, we've been spending a fair amount of time just coordinating our next big moves that we have coming up for the next phase of construction. We're still, obviously, still working on our second floor west center core area. This summer, we are starting, it's actually a lot of stuff's going on this summer at the high school. Starting the east center core of the second floor, the far west end of the second floor over by the science area, first floor library, first floor the future IT academy. The robotics is currently under construction right now, and like I said, the second floor west is currently under construction. Then when you go to the outside, you'll see parking lots being done, you'll see the roof being done, curb and gutter, sidewalks going in. So there'll be a lot of work this summer. The 9th is the last day of school, so staff that are being affected by their moves know that they have to have everything pretty well packed up, part of the last class, and within an hour of school being over, we'll have movers moving stuff out of there, and the next day we'll have, on that Saturday, we'll have demo guys getting work done. So small amount of time to get a lot of stuff done. Second item is We Energies. Last month I had a easement for the east side of the building. This month on the west side of the building where the current soccer field is, we're going to move the transformer to the south further, since the soccer field's getting relocated as well. So there's another easement that we'll have Cherry and Mary sign for that. Any questions at all on renovation work?
I just have one. Is it possible, if you'd like to just look at it to?
Oh, absolutely. So I have that in my notes. I didn't know if you wanted to have a meeting at the high school. The library will not be available for the next several months, but I don't know where we can meet.
Maybe
Room
are-
15,
are-
maybe?
Are they supposed
We
to
could
have
probably-
majority of the inside classrooms and library done by the end of summer?
Yes, the second library will be done by the end of summer. The second floor, where they started, the second floor center core west side, that'll be done by the end of summer. Robotics area will be done by the end of summer. The IT academy area will be done by the end of summer.
Okay, so maybe towards the end of summer, we can
Sure.
meet over there.
Yeah, but I think what
think that
you're
would
also
be-
asking is, can you get a tour of the progress that we've had so far? I gave Andy one last week or a couple weeks ago. I'm happy to give people tours of what we've been doing. So if you just want to email me, I'd be happy to show it off.
Here all, it would be fun to go in and wear my hat.
Yes, yes.
Helmet?
C.G. Schmidt made a big investment into those. Our hats, we want you to utilize them.
I wanna wear my hat sometimes, so I'll have to get a tour.
Absolutely. Just let me know. We'll show
I
you.
could drop something on your head.
I saw them out at the tennis courts. Were they putting the top coat on finally, or?
They've been working on the surface piece. The light pole is the piece that they're waiting for right now, to get in. They don't wanna put all the surface down now and then put the light pole in later. So, I believe they're expecting that this week here. So we're still targeting that first week of June, wrapping things up, over at the tennis courts.
Okay,
So,
all right.
And we included our latest construction update that we share with our staff and others. And you can note, you can see some pictures there. Oh, I noticed the copies didn't come through very well. I'm going to resend you those graphs from the Youth At-Risk Behavior Survey and the Alcohol and Tobacco Other Drug Incidents. I'm going to resend that electronically. we could send this update to you also.
Hey Kurt, just a quick question on the last item under odor or dust concerns. I assume that was a misspelling. Instead of it, the additional heat filters, that should be HEPA.
Oh, yes, yes, thank you.
Just checking
HEPA
in
is
case
correct.
there was something I
Yes.
wasn't.
But things have been quiet there, so, which has been good. It's been, since the last meeting, there's been I don't know if there was any complaints since the last meeting where I said we did multiple things, so that's been very positive that we think we addressed everything and people have been satisfied, or at least they aren't complaining.
The second shift.
Yes, second flush, yep, and so the demo is pretty well complete now, actually it is complete now, they're actually, putting steel stud walls up now, which I think was in that construction update, the weekly update. So it's nice to see stuff actually starting to get built now, so.
I think it was in the update, but just so you are aware, the east parking lot will be shut down after June 9, right?
Yes.
So that will be a construction zone. So the only parking at the high school will be on the west side.
Which is shut down.
So
Is everything in
Yeah.
construction zone
Yeah.
at the high school?
there will be a long walk. So we've moved a lot of our summer activities to other buildings.
Example.
Summer school.
Summer school will be at Parkview. All of our camps are, most of our camps are being moved to Parkview or Rolling Hills or Section,
Oh, is the high
So-
school, so the high school, summer school's at Parkview?
except for strength and conditioning. Mhm.
That's what I was gonna ask, that's still at the high school.
That's still at the high school. We figured for strength and conditioning,
Yeah,
you should
they're
be able to
outside.
walk
They can roll,
Yeah,
into the building.
they can roll
that
bricks
would be a
around,
problem,
you know,
yeah.
pick stuff up, move it for construction workers, that's all.
So a lot going on.
Okay. All right, any other questions for Kurt? All right, next up is the Friends of Mcgonagall Athletics Project.
Yeah, Kurt's going to stick around for that. And
Yep.
then we also have several FOMA members here. I don't know if you guys want to come on up or.
I'll kind of introduce a little bit about that project as far as my memo there. So a week or so ago, FOMA reached out and with their great progress with the football field project, they're starting to look at their next project, and I'll let these guys talk a little bit more about that. But really, what my hope from this meeting today is to get direction from you as far as, one, is this a project we want to consider? And then two, as it relates to the construction that's happening this summer, if it is something that we want to consider, it would make sense that I alter some things this summer so we aren't redoing stuff when the project would actually come to fruition if it goes that way, or even if it's a likely thing that may happen. If you guys like the concept or think it has some potential but just needs some more information, I'd like to get that direction today leaving here so I can coordinate with my sidewalks that is getting put in this summer and say, well, let's not go all the way to the end. Let's stop it short so we're not redoing it potentially in the future. The asphalt work that's adjacent to this area, if it's likely, I can hold off on some of that area. That re-roofing of the little ticket stand there. So some areas that would be affected. I just don't want to do something this year and then next year, if this project would go forward, have to redo it and waste that money. So I guess I'll let these guys talk a little bit about what their thoughts are, and you can ask questions.
My name is Chris Walker. I'm recently anointed, one of those, the president of FOMA. I'm here with Cheryl Grossman and Danielle Hibbard, the other members of the board. Just kind of a quick recap of what FOMA has done for those that are new to the board. We started in mid of 2013 and with the charge of trying to raise money for major projects. Since then, we've been involved in $1.2 million worth of projects for the district that include the new fitness center at the high school, the girls softball complex behind the high school over by the baseball fields, the upgrading of the varsity locker rooms, the fixing up and redoing of the new shot put area for the track and field, as well as the turf project, the multi-use turf at Hensler Field. Obviously, that's the major project. Those have been completed. We're working on finalizing money for that, so we're looking at what the next one might be. What Kurt referenced is we're looking at maybe looking at doing a new entrance into the athletic field facility. So that's kind of what we're thinking may be the next FOMA project out there. I don't know if they've seen any
Yeah.
renderings or anything on it.
They're in our
so-
packet
okay.
right now.
Okay.
And that-
So,
and
go ahead.
Those renderings that were created, this was actually something that FOMA talked about. It was back in 2015 is when we first had some discussions about this. And we just had some renderings done, and I put a budget together back then, reached out to a couple contractors, very schematic level, just to understand what the magnitude of it was. So the information I included was from what we had done in 2015.
Now, other than the entryway looking incredible, what are some of the other reasons why the entryway? I mean, what are you using that for? The areas of the entry? Sign?
The idea behind this all, we went to Andy Trudell and asked for direction. What would he like done? What has he seen the need show up? And we were given two projects, the entranceway or lights for the softball field. So that is the only two things that we have discussed in the last year. And knowing that we feel very confident by September for FOMA Fest, we will be writing the check back for paying off the turf. We're looking at the next project. Is that what you're trying
I
to
guess
get?
the clarification is, I'm seeing like walls or bricks or whatever. What are some of the components of this entry, and is it, from my understanding, a fundraising avenue there to raise? Is that?
There is, and what was looked at is, and I apologize, I'm gonna speak a little bit and change hats here because, as you know, I'm part of FOMA as well. We looked at Oconomowoc, and the Oconomowoc complex has a new entryway to, Erica's shaking her head, she must have seen it.
Well, I think when this came up in 2015, we looked at some
We
of
did.
those
Yes.
pictures as
Yeah.
well, because that's when naming rights came up, this
Correct.
whole discussion, because I think they sell bricks.
They do,
right?
and that's something that we as an organization had talked about as FOMA with Andy and our organization, and the Oconomowoc complex is a great example. They have raised a significant amount of money to help retire that project, to fundraise for that project, and for the overall give back. It's years and years that it's going to continue to do that even after the completion of the project. So when Andy came to us and said, well, we got this, and we had looked at this project, I remember seeing this rendering 2 years ago with Kurt, and we said, well, this is an incredible idea because it helps us find a reason to put another project and give back to the community and to the district. But it's something kind of like Christmas vacation. It's the gift that keeps on giving, because even after this project is paid off, 2-3 years down the road or whatever it takes, there's going to be people, families, businesses that are going to want to give to have their business name, their family name embedded into this entryway.
Question I have, not that I have any issue with the naming rights, I do think though, if we're gonna look at, for the new facilities at the high school and have some sort of naming program established, and if we do choose to move forward with this, there should be some consistency on how that's done between, so it's not just the school is this and the football field is this. I think we need to figure out a way to make that all kind of make sense together. So,
And Jeff, one of the things that was looked at, that was talked about very recently, is naming, sponsorship bricks, anything that would go on the outside of this entryway, all of those funds would be earmarked and come back to the district to assist in retiring this project. And those monies would come straight to it, and FOMA would fundraise for a dollar amount of this project. So ultimately, between the fundraising efforts between FOMA and funds coming back for naming, sponsorship, bricks, et cetera, coming back earmarked to the district, and however the board chooses to earmark those funds, you know, that was one of the things that we looked at. So knowing that policy, we talked about, 3 meetings ago, where we're looking at different sponsorship areas, and that, you know, with the FOMA projects, it's always been one project, one fundraising effort. So therefore, everything that comes in goes to that project.
Yeah, and that I don't have an issue. I just want the value that's placed on whatever's named, I mean, just so there's, all of that kind of makes sense from one end of things to the other, so we're not, it's not out of kilter. So, that's the only thing that I would wanna make sure we did.
Jill?
Since I'm new to this process and wasn't here when some of your previous projects were done, how do we as a board make a decision on what part we contribute? What's the process? Is there a rule? Is there a bylaw? Is it?
So that's each individual project. So for example, when we did the fitness center, the board did the structure of the fitness center, and FOMA raised money for all the equipment. When we took a look at the field turf, the multi-use field turf, FOMA contributed $500,000, right? And we did we did 120 out of the 620. And what we did for that was we took a look at our maintenance costs for our grass field over the next, and Kurt, help me out, 10 or 12 years. And the savings, because there is savings, there's less maintenance costs for the field turf than with trying to grow grass and cut grass and fertilize, et cetera, et cetera. So we took the next 12 years of our maintenance cost and contributed that towards the 620 cost. So that came to 120.
And also the board took into account what having facilities improved would add to our district, both enrollment and, you know, obviously we're doing a lot of the improvements like the Performing Arts Center and the 3-stage gym, and we have moved those up so the curb appeal, so the attraction of the community, and it's very key in trying to attract.
So then we just make the decision. We decide what the
Yep.
factors are that are important, and we figure
Mhm.
that out. They don't
As a
make
board.
request to us and say, we want you to cover 20% of it, 50% of it.
Well, there's always some proposal to start with, otherwise it'd be totally lost on what direction.
I think as Kurt has said, we were not quite ready for this, but because of things that are going on in his plan, he felt it was right to bring it to forefront, maybe sooner than we actually know the exact numbers or things like that. So we're kind of cart before the horse, horse behind the cart type of thing, and trying to figure it out all in a timely basis, so we're not doing something and ripping it up 2 weeks later, and then go forward from that. So we're kind of in between stages right now. So otherwise, we'd probably have a number and say, we'll do this if you do that, but we don't know what, if you want to even do this.
Kurt, do you have a solid cost on this project?
Yeah, so what we budgeted in 2015 was $300,000 for, you know, what the rendering is, which included I think there's a $15,000 contingency in there as well. So I see kind of that's the process that I see is if the board says yes, let's investigate this further. Let's firm up numbers. Let's have FOMA come back with a proposal, or if you guys want to come up with a proposal as far as how to structure it, then I see that kind of as the next step. And at that same time, it would be Kurt, hold on anything so we don't have to redo any work if this did come into fruition. And then kind of take it from there is kind of how I would see that next step, if it sounds like a project worth discussing or worth continuing down the path on.
Okay, Erica?
Do you have any guesses on the cost to re-roof and reside the ticket booth?
I would say it's pretty minimal, so you're less than the ticket booth itself is
$12.
Yeah.
It
So-
doesn't that doesn't really fit into
That just is like here as a point of like, hey, it would save this cost. And I'm like, but if it's really not a big
It's,
cost.
your big cost is going to be your sidewalk work, that's gonna come through. Because you would stop at, you probably got about 60 feet of sidewalk that would get ripped back out. So sidewalk is a big piece, the asphalt portion, I actually didn't include it in this piece, but when you walk out there and look at that site, so the asphalt portion that is, that's planned to replace is actually to the, south a little bit further. But actually, when I walked out there the other day, after I wrote this, I noticed that the extra construction traffic that we've been having hitting the tennis courts, that newer section of asphalt is rutted up. So we would, when we replace that southern section, the northern section would get replaced as well. So that asphalt, basically along that whole pathway will get replaced. But if you say this is a potential project, I would hold that off as well. What was the other big piece there? Just some landscaping along the existing third parking lot, on the east side of that third parking lot. So those are kind of the pieces that would if you said it would likely happen this summer if you say no, I don't want to consider this.
Just have one more quick question. Is there anything that needs to be done to the facility right now, which is the bathrooms and the concessions, et cetera, assuming we move forward with this? Is there anything, this will all work around that, or does that, I mean, that's relatively new, isn't it?
Yeah, that was put up in
Okay.
2010, I believe, and that's all in good shape yet, nothing that needs extra additional work that I'm aware of.
We wouldn't want to make any changes to it as part of this, I mean, if we were going to do that.
Well, I love the concession stand for every event that's out on the field.
Every event.
So I think maybe now that you're all parking in the third parking lot, I'm gonna open a window and we're gonna have drive-through traffic in the morning, so you can get your coffee as you come into school. I
That's a
can
good
see a
idea.
new thing coming up there.
I mean, I think the key thing here is that FOMA is looking for their next project. And this project is one that, you know, when we initially built the concession stand, we had a pad. We have an area of bricks for fundraising. There was a pad for a monument. They're looking at taking that idea on steroids, paying for, raising funds for that, and then giving us an avenue to collect funds on an ongoing basis to pay for our portion, as well as, in my opinion, what the board would be responsible doing is to take those funds that we would be able to acquire through the bricks and through the naming of that area and that field and put it into a special fund. So we are first paying for our portion that we ask, you know, or we go ahead and agree to, but then keeping the rest of the funds put aside for replacement of the artificial turf in 15, 20 years, because then we will be looking out for future boards instead of what many boards in the past have done to future boards and leave them high and dry. And FOMA is trying to put together an avenue for us to collect funds. And, you know, like many of these things, it always takes money to make money. You know, all the naming rights and things of the facilities that we are putting together, they're doing that for a reason, so we can hopefully acquire additional funds. But I think this is a good opportunity for the board to be responsible, look out for future boards, you know, when only Andy is on the board. So, you know, he's gonna need help.
Thanks, Art.
I guess I'm not against it, but the financial aspect of what the district puts in right now with all the construction we have going on, teachers looking for wondering what they're gonna get next year for a raise, we have kind of a lot of balls up in the air. And we don't know which ones are gonna fall, we don't know what the state's gonna be giving us next year. I was just wondering how much what are we looking at? Do you need to worry about financing right now, or is that for another day? How much the district's gonna kick in, or?
What do you?
Well, we're right, we know that,
What-
but how much, you know, what your portion will be versus our portion, do you need to know that right now, or
Or is that what you're going to
or you just wanna know,
put
like, this
together?
is your next
When
project?
Kurt puts the
and-
numbers down, you know, and knows them for sure, then we can meet and say, oh my goodness, this is another turf, we can't handle that much of it, or maybe we can handle it. You know, I think we need to know that for sure, where we're going and what kind of leeway we have before
Okay.
we do it.
Do you guys have an idea of, you know, roughly an amount that you've been able to consistently be able to dedicate to your projects that you've helped us with? Because you guys have done such a good job in the past.
I think we have 4 main projects that we are, events that we have settled on that we will continue to have. That'll be our Heart Fest in February, a 9-pin tap bowling, March or April, our Muck Fest for the kids in September, and our FOMA Fest September, October-ish. And, you know, we've been successful with going on our 5th year of FOMA Fest this fall. We've been successful of raising about $40,000 a year. So, I mean, that would get us, if we go 5 years, that would be $200,000-ish, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
again, weather, people, everything accounts
Right.
for,
But
you know,
it's
who knows
been,
what the future
it's
will
held
bring, but
true.
that's been our history,
Right.
and we've been able to even add a little more, you know,
Right.
but we never know that.
So,
Is that what you were asking?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
so you're kind of asking from us is the, you know, go ahead to nail down numbers more solidly, so then you can look at that and decide where you're at with it in relation to, come back to us to say, okay, we can do this, we were looking for the board to do this. Is that
Yeah,
about right?
I think for me, it's just to take the temperature of the board. What do you think on this? I mean, at the end of the day, if the board and FOMA says 200,000 combined is all we want to do, we can design it to a $200,000 entrance. So I guess the initial was does the board feel that this is a good project for the district regardless of who's funding it, right? That'd be the first question. And the second question that I don't think we're gonna be able to answer tonight is what would the board feel an appropriate amount, if any, would be for the school district to put in? What type of value does that create, provide the school district? So I think really the first question is what I'm hoping to just get a little feedback from the board, because if the answer is yes, we think that's a good project and let's continue to go down that path, then I would modify the construction this summer. And like I said, if it ends up being that the board says, oh, I'm willing to pay X, and FOMA says, well, we can't raise the difference to make it a $300,000 project, we can still scale back on to a $200,000 project and still have a nice looking entrance. So I think main thing is just trying to get an idea from the board. Is this something worth continuing down the road that there may be a potential shared project for the common good of the district?
Is there anyone against this being their next project? Okay, I think we have a consensus that we're gonna move forward.
Well, I do want to say I appreciate the manner in which you decided to approach this, because it does give us a better feel for how, what's happening, instead of having it just thrust upon us. So I do appreciate doing it this way, so thank you.
And Kurt, I think if you could maybe work with Trudell and try to get an idea, you know, Economoc's a great example. I know Arrowhead's doing some of that, you know, what their numbers are, what they're bringing in, just so when we decide to move ahead, that we know what is the potential for getting those funds on a yearly basis.
I
and
think
add
we're gonna
that-
have to rely on
add
those
that up.
funds to pay for our portion, because
Yeah,
I just
right.
can't take that out of the budget with
Exactly.
everything else going on.
That's why.
And one of the things that came up when we were originally talking about this 2 years ago was, even before the referendum obviously was approved, was enhancing that end of the campus at that point. We're doing a lot of stuff here. This would kind of bookend what's going on with the Performing Arts Center, and then to the new gym, just to enhance and keep that kind of flow going all the way to that intersection where people are gonna be pulling in and stopping. that's kind of what the thought process was. Obviously, 2 years ago when we were first starting doing this, there was enough on everybody's plate that it's like, well, wait a second, we can't take on another $200,000-$300,000 project. So that's why it's kind of been tabled, but now with all the construction and everything that's going on, and with not, you know, what Kurt was saying, we don't wanna build sidewalks and do all this and then
Rip it out.
you know, so that's why it's kind of jumped up a little bit. But that was kind of the thought process when we were looking at it, was just to enhance that end of the campus prior to, you know, now we're gonna have the tennis courts and there's gonna be more athletic activity on that end. It'll just enhance what we're trying to do and hopefully lead to more state events or regionals or something like that as well in that facility, whether it's soccer, lacrosse, you know, whatever it is that can happen now, just to enhance our public image around the community. And as more people come to the Mcgonagall High School, they go, wow, they really got something going there. So that was the thought process 2 years ago, which I think still holds true, because we're really not helping address that end of the campus, so.
Okay.
And
I got one more thing, with regards to the parking. Is there any way to put an overflow parking sign out by the grass? Because at the track meet, the Cottrell invite, we had people parking all the way down an end and nobody was using the grass to park.
West of the.
Yeah, west of that parking lot. And they're visiting from other places, so they wouldn't know to park there, but no one was using that.
And I just want to say again, thanks to FOMA for all you've done for all our followers that are watching us on TV and live streaming. So, no, really, without FOMA, you know, you guys have made a big difference, so thanks.
Well, and that
Yes.
goes both ways.
Thank you.
You know, this is a community effort, and we want to be a part of that, so we appreciate the support from the board too, so.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
you.
Okay, next up, the 16-17 year-end budget presentation.
I'll go fast for you
It's
guys.
9:30.
Yeah.
Say that wasn't
You're
me,
still-
or-
Slow down.
Glad I wasn't the only one thinking. I didn't see that.
All right, so I just want to take this, I guess, time tonight here to kind of use this as a primer as to where we're going to go here as we close out the current fiscal year. So any questions at any point, stop me here, okay? Ultimately, what we're going to talk about right now is shared costs. Shared costs is going to be the lowest common denominator of what we're speaking about tonight. The shared costs that we have now in 16-17, let me just back up for a quick second. Shared costs are the costs that we incur that state government will reimburse us for a year later. So essentially they are shared costs because state government shares in those costs with us. Okay, so whatever shared costs we incur right now will affect next year's equalization aid, and then next year's equalization aid will affect next year's property taxes. So what we spend right now will affect our outlook next year regarding how much money we get from state government, and that will in turn affect our property taxes. Okay? So equalization aid, as we talk about that, a lot of people, it's synonymous with state aid. There's a lot of different forms of state aid. And equalization aid is the biggest one. It's the most important one. To our district, that's $19 million out of the $47 million in our Fund 10 budget. Okay? So when we make our final decisions right now, we're really looking at what those shared costs, and I have that highlighted in red because, again, that's what we're going to focus on, and what occurs to those shared costs now will impact next year's state aid. So if we have too little shared costs, we're leaving aid on the table. If we have too much shared costs, we'll be pushing aid back onto the table. Also, we just really want to focus on keeping our tax levy stable and consistent. I know we all appreciate a stable tax bill that comes that doesn't fluctuate greatly from year to year, but we also want to make sure that we make a proper financial commitment to our students. So the shared costs that we speak of here are going to be coming from these four funds, Funds 10, 38, 39, 41. All in all, any other fund or any other expenditure is going to be funded perhaps through a different means. So special education costs in Fund 27, those we're not funded through equalization aid for that. We get special ed categorical aid, which is just another form of state aid, okay? Food service, state government doesn't help us with that. Federal government does, but all those other funds are either not getting help from anybody or getting help in another way. Equalization aid helps pay the bills in those 4 funds. So I'm going to use this quick talk here tonight to draw our game plan, but I'm also going to try to just help compare us to 3 of our neighbors, Mcgonagall, Kelmaraine, and New Berlin, since we do have a lot in common with them, really other than shared cost per member. We all know that we're at the low end of most of these metrics here right now. So looking back at the most fully completed school year, you can see as what those shared costs per student were in each of our districts. Okay. So what we're going to do right now is break each of these, we're going to put this into 3 tiers. We have the first tier, which is the primary tier, and state government is going to reimburse us for all costs between $0 and $1,000 for each student at a certain rate, and that rate is unique and different to each school district. The secondary rate is all costs between the 2 blue lines, between $1,001 and $9,539. That $9,539 mark, that is the shared cost ceiling, and then all costs beyond $9,539 gets reimbursed at a different rate, and for all 4 districts that rate is actually negative because the property values in these districts, according to state measurements, are just too high. Okay, so here you can see what those percentages of reimbursement are. So for the first $1,000 of costs in Mcgonagall, 65% of those costs get reimbursed. We have slightly more property value than Mcgonagall does, so they get slightly more aid at that primary level, at that first $1,000. Kelmaraine and New Berlin have a lot more property value than do Mcgonagall, so they get a lot less aid at that primary level. The vast majority of state aid is going to come at that secondary level between the 2 blue lines. So we get 42 cents on the dollar for all dollars expended between $1,000 and $9,539. If you compare that to New Berlin, where they have Moreland Road, where all that industry and commerce and things, they have just a lot more property value. Because of that property value, therefore they get a lot less help from state aid. They only get 15% aid for all dollars expended in that range. And then beyond that, above the blue line at the tertiary level or the 3rd level there, we didn't get to that level this past year, but if we did, we would have been at negative 20 cents. So for every dollar we expend beyond that, we forfeit 20 cents later in state aid. So if you take a look at those other districts, they all did expend into that tertiary level, and you could kind of just say maybe that's the cost of doing business in South Waukesha County, in terms of hiring teachers, buying them health insurance, etc. So I'll move on there. So comparing that $9,539, that's kind of like the magic value as to you will be positively aided up until that point, and then beyond that, aid will then diminish, okay? So if you just compare that to our revenue limit, we collect $9,200 per student. So in a way, it's only natural that we would be underneath that value. The other districts that we're comparing ourselves to have much higher revenue limits, so it's only natural for them that they're going to go well beyond at that $9,539 value and get negative aid. So when you take a look at that composition of our revenue limit there, our $9,200, there's the split. You can see in blue how much is coming from state aid. We get $4,142, and then the remainder of that comes from our property taxpayers. I know one of the questions from one of our board members when our auditor came by this past November or so said, how does the composition of this compare to our neighbors? And the answer was, it's about the same, but that's not true. You can see there as we compare New Berlin, given their property values and how much money they spend, that their taxes are given the burden. They get very little state aid because of the amount of money that they choose to spend per student. Okay, just putting that into pure percentages forms, we get 45% of our dollars from state aid, and then the remainder come from property taxes, and then you can kind of see how that compares. Okay. All right, so just talk about the final steps here and what we can do. So if I just back up here, if we could maybe make this how can we increase that blue region right there? How could we get state government to take on even more if possible? That's really what we're going to talk here now. So as we close out the current school year here, the first step that I have to do is understand, well, what is that blue line? Like, what's that shared cost ceiling, and what's it going to be? Because how that number is developed really is we take a look at all 424 school districts. We take the average of their dollars spent in the current school year. So if I was going to do this, I'd have to make 423 phone calls to all their business managers and ask, what are you going to spend on your students this year? And they don't even know at this point in time yet. It's difficult for me to formulate that here in Mcgonagall. But if we look at history, we know it's probably going to increase about 1.5%. So if I multiply the $9,539 and add 1.5% to it, I think we'll get positive aid up into $9,682. The second step that I'll take then is I'll say, how much money do I think as of June 30 will we spend per student? And right now I'm just using this as an illustrative purpose here. Between now and next board meeting, I intend to hone in and get a firm number on this. As I try to look into the future here to figure out how much we are going to spend per student, that kind of takes a calculation of IBNR, or incurred but not reported. Todd, are you familiar with some of that stuff in your accounting lingo? So as we move forward throughout, we still have another payroll here in May. We have 2 more in June. We're still paying transportation costs, etc. We're going to try to lock in what we think it's going to work out to be here. And then with whatever room that we have left then, so in this example, if there was $282 per student that we could receive positive aid on, we would want to take advantage of any opportunities to make sure that if we're going to get basically 42 cents on the dollar or 42% off sale, I think we should take advantage of it. It makes sense in every regard. Some of you guys are looking at me right now, and I'm not sure if you got questions or...
No, I'm thinking that you
Even better, Kohl's only gives you 30% off. We're going 42%, Erica.
I'm thinking that you've finally exceeded Darren Clark with the composition of the... It's just blowing me away.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you're looking at me like I'm crazy, Art, so I had to ask, man. I apologize. But so the 2 strategies that we'll have is, what would we do with that orange area? You know, if that worked out to be $1 million or 1.3 million, like what would we do meaningfully, you know, June 20th or whatnot? Because there's only so many things you could do in the 2 strategies. One would be to use Fund 46. Fund 46, I know I'm throwing a lot of funds out there into somebody like Jill or Andy. That's all new. Fund 46 would be a fund that we use to dedicate money for building projects. And we could put that money into Fund 46, and we would get positively aided on that. So even though we didn't actually do a building project, it's kind of your rainy day fund. When you deposit that money, state government will recognize that like you really did a project. But when the time comes and you actually do a project, you want to get aided again on that. You can only get aided once on that, not twice. So the other strategy is that we could take we could make our final deposits necessary into Fund 73, which is our employee benefit trust fund. We're getting really close to being fully funded. The current game plan is we'd get there 2 more years after this one. We're already at 93%. We're probably even closer than that. But we could just do the final math and say, you know what, last deposit, we're done. No more deposits ever. Completely funded forever. Okay? So those would be the 2 strategies where we can make meaningful contributions there. So I guess the final thoughts here is we'll spending fund balance in future years will put us over the shared cost ceiling. So I'll just give you an example. Let's say we determine we want to do a middle school project and expand that building, bring the 6th grade there. Let's just think about that for a second. And we decided we were going to use $5 million of fund balance to make that happen. Okay? What would happen is that in that particular year, our shared costs would go way high. In a given year where you dip into your fund balance, it's going to push your shared costs real high, which is going to put you in that negative tertiary aid very much. You'll be very much exposed to that. And when you do that, equalization aid comes down, property taxes go up. Okay? So any given year that shared costs fluctuate real high for whatever reason, that's the effect there. So the lesson is that when you can avoid spending large amounts of fund balance in 1 year, do that. Try to avoid that when possible. But we should also accept that spending some distance past that shared cost ceiling is acceptable. If you take a look at Cal Moraine and Mcgonagall, if we were to use the amounts they spend, you could say, well, maybe that's the cost of doing business in South Waukesha County. So if we were to transfer some money to Fund 46 that was past the secondary cost ceiling, I guess let me back up and say it differently. At some point when we use our fund balances, it's going to get exposed to that negative 20%. We could do a little bit now, a little bit more next year, and a little bit more the year after that. Or we could just take a one-time big hit and say, let's just spend $5 million all in 1 year, to go back to my example. That would cause everybody's property tax bills to go real high 1 year and come back the next. And I don't think that's what the citizens ultimately want, but you tell me. So we could take this kind of just slowly, gradually. At some point, as you remove your fund balance out of Fund 10, it's going to get exposed to that negative 20%. Okay? It's kind of like laundering. All right, so that's my last bullet point there. Wow. This is equivalent to quote-unquote laundering money slowly from year to year versus expending large amounts of it within 1 year. Okay?
I just resigned.
Oh, that just lost us. Okay.
Half the board just resigned.
And we'll pay off the OPEB.
So this is the Fund 46 opportunity here is to take that money and to put it into a proper place slowly, rather than having things fluctuate greatly from 1 year to the next. So it's just to do it that way. Okay? So the next steps here, on June 12th, I'll give a final game plan proposal. And then on June 26th, the looking for final game plan approved. Now, I know that we're talking about not having that meeting. So I'm going to follow up here on June 12th here with the final game plan. We can make deposits into Fund 46 and Fund 73 in the month of July. I just want to confirm that. Art, me and you can meet on the 26th. Is that cool? Awesome. So that's the next steps here. I should be able to give you guys clear-cut, precise information about where I think we will be come June 30 here when we meet on June 12th. Okay? Sorry if you don't like my laundering terminology there. Everything is legit on the up and up. Todd can tell you all about it.
There'll be an audit coming.
Is any questions, anybody?
Afraid to ask.
Thank you. Nope. Thank you.
That was, what do you,
Thanks, Tom.
is this what you do when you come in so late at night?
He launders money.
Yeah. Legally.
Yeah.
It's legally. These are the tools that
Fund 70
the government gave us. All right?
Yeah, they're the ones that do it best.
Okay.
There's a lot of conversation.
On that note, I think we can go on to personnel. And I just want to tell our student board reps, you guys don't have to stay for too much longer. Because we do want you to come back, and after Mr. Karthauser's presentation, I don't know if you'll ever come back. I forgot to mention earlier tonight, I was supposed to mention that Miriam was late tonight because she had a band concert, so she wanted to make sure that you guys knew that she did have an important activity, and that's why she didn't come until then. Just so you know. How'd it go?
That was good.
Good.
And for future notice, you don't ever have to stay past 9 if you don't want to. You're excused, you can just
Hope that the meetings don't.
run for the door.
Especially if Tom
Or
runs
board
long.
members may follow.
Although what we might request is like a list of all the funds and like what the numbers stand for, because we're kind of lost with the.
That's a good.
Mr. Karthauser can
You might
do that
want
for
to-
you.
There you go,
You
Tom.
might want to do that.
Someone who wants to listen to you.
So as board members, we can leave at 9 with them?
Yeah.
I'll just
Tom's
sneak
gonna
out.
stay.
Were you an econ teacher in your previous life?
No, I was not.
He was an actuary, so
Oh,
that
sorry.
should explain.
He's the one crunching those IBNR numbers.
I don't know, I think you explained it quite well. I
You did a good
really
job.
do
Yeah.
appreciate your.
We want to go up to the line, but not
Okay.
over, and
Yep.
figure out what to do with
Yep.
those monies. Got it. No problem. See? Took me like 2 seconds to explain it to everybody.
Personnel.
That's right, there you go.
Personal.
All right, Personnel Committee, Superintendent Evaluation we'll come back to. Fund
Yes.
73, repurpose. proposal.
Yes, so we've been talking about how we're going to use those OPEB money. So speaking of spending, I forgot what page.
It's on,
Yeah,
That
80.
Starts on 80.
yep,
Page 80.
79 actually.
So on page 80 is the latest memo, and then following that is another memo that you had seen back in February, and then it lists our district needs also. And so as you know, we no longer need to dedicate so much money as we have been to our Fund 73, or our post-retirement benefit fund. Just like Tom said, we're at 93%, soon we'll be fully funded, so we're looking at ways that we can spend some of that money. And you have approved a couple of positions already. Tonight, I'm looking for your blessing to move forward on 2 more. I think the first that I have in the memo is our elementary guidance position. As you know, we have 6 elementary schools. We only have 2 guidance counselors for those 6 elementary schools. So those 2 people need to serve over 2,000 students at 3 buildings each. So we are hoping that we can add a counselor for that. I don't know if anyone has some questions. I have the rationale of what they do, but I think that's pretty much a no-brainer.
I make a motion.
I know right now.
I'm like, right now, do it and hire someone.
And I
The-
didn't think that would be a concern. I'm embarrassed to say that we only have 2, and we've only had 2 for so long. It's, as a former elementary principal for 10 years, I can tell you it's really, really difficult. And it's hard because we have students that need assistance, that need guidance, help, and you aren't always able to meet those needs when you have a guidance counselor traveling between 3 buildings.
And they help with emotional needs and things like that. And, just talking about that, and I didn't know when I was going to fit this in, but this did have an earlier conversation. The nurses in our schools do a lot of this now. I mean, when there's nobody else in the building, if there's an emotional breakdown or whatever is going on, in addition to all the normal care that our elementary kids need, it's become, it came to my attention that we don't have a nurse staffed from beginning to end in these schools. This is a mistake. And I just happen to say something to this gentleman next to me. And did you have an example that you wanted to
I did
cite?
have an example that I'd be more than glad to share. Last Thursday, I received a call from the health room at the high school, and my son, who's a junior, was in the health room with chest pains and difficulty breathing. And the first thing I asked is, is there a nurse? And there was no nurse in the high school. They said, we've called her, and she's on her way. And I said, well, call 911. I mean, as you know, I have a health background, so, chest pains and difficulty breathing is absolutely nothing to mess around with. And by the time I got to the high school, the ambulance was there, and they were loading him up and getting ready to transport him out. And, I was, for lack of a better word, shocked that we don't have a nurse in the high school. One of our biggest schools that we, have kids in, and our educators and our visitors and everything, and no healthcare provider. Now I want to go on record as saying the 2 ladies that were in that health room did an incredible job as their health assistants, right? Or health room aides, what is their proper title?
So, yeah, that's a great question. So I just want to make sure everybody is on the same page. So the district has 1 registered nurse. That's Laura Heidelmeyer. So she is the nurse for the entire district. Now, her office is at Parkview Middle School.
Okay.
Then in each of our 8 buildings, we have health assistants.
Okay.
And the health assistants are not necessarily,
They're not trained.
well, they're trained in first aid
Okay.
and CPR and things like that.
Sure. Medication administration.
Okay.
Right, but they're not registered nurses, although a couple of them are, but that's not a requirement for the position,
And
because we don't pay them like a nurse.
Well,
And so then because of budget cuts, so each building has an health assistant, then because of budget cuts, in order to reduce their hours so we would not have to pay them health insurance benefits, they were reduced from 7.5 hours a day to 5 3/4 hours a day at all of our buildings. Now, this year, we did increase the health assistant at the high school to have coverage all day. But the rest of our schools, their health assistants, even though our kids are in school for 7 hours a day, we only have coverage in the health rooms with that health assistant for 5 3/4 hours. Then we have other staff come in and provide coverage in the health rooms at the building. So at the elementary buildings, the office clerks do the coverage for the other hour and 15 minutes. And at the middle school, they have another office clerk cover the health room for that hour or so,
And
that the health assistant isn't there.
So clarification also, what kind of hours are in their, budgeted in their contract or whatever for preparation for the school year, for the incoming school year, as well as at the end for handing those kids off from the elementary school to the middle school to the high school, with all the medications that are prevalent out there? I know the answer, but I would like to hear it. How many hours do they have to do those duties so it is a nice, handoff to the others that are saying they're not getting all the information?
Do you know off the top of your head? Because I think it's different for each building.
So-
So at the
Yeah,
high
so-
school
So
level,
that
I
is-
know that
that
Nikki
is
Schwiso,
up-
she works more
okay.
hours. She has more hours than maybe some of the other ones do. I don't know.
So
what the
that
number
is something that they're concerned about, that they don't have the time to properly hand off our children to another school, another level, also to prepare for the incoming students, finding out their histories, having the medications. I know as the Braves organization, this is my 14th year this year. I forget I'm sitting next to the trainer here. Just as a head coach, the EpiPens and the inhalers and all the things that I have to make sure that we know where they are, and they're going with us to games as well as practice, has increased tremendously. Is there some information on that? Or am I just guessing that it has increased dramatically?
I think the needs of many students with medical issues has increased. I mean, we see it, in the football program, as Art mentioned, and at the school level. I can't speak to it because I'm not a healthcare provider within the district, but the one thing that I wanted to finish before we lost track is the two ladies in the high school health room last Thursday were incredible.
Yeah,
I
they're
thought
great.
they did
We agree.
a phenomenal job. I was very impressed with the way they kept the situation calm, and I think attaboys need to go out to both of them, and I've called both of them personally and thanked them. So,
Speaking to that point, from my wife being a teacher over at Clarendon, and she has seen over time, she's got a student now that's just been diagnosed with diabetes. So you have to be conscious of that. And in the past, there's been other students that she's had with a variety of different things, allergies and so on, that require medication and such. It does create a larger burden on people who aren't necessarily, that's not what their job is, from a teacher's standpoint. I mean, let alone what you're talking about.
absolutely, and
And I know that's not something, they do it because they need to. There's EpiPens and all this kind of stuff that they're required to be ready to do. But at the same time, that's not really what they're there for. And so somehow we have to kind of figure out how better to address these kinds of things because they're becoming more prevalent.
And,
You know,
and
I-
it-
no.
I'm sorry.
please.
And
No,
it
I
was,
wanted to
okay.
The question I did have, Sean, you mentioned budget cuts in that previously. Did we have more than one nurse in the district ever?
No,
No.
not since I've been here for 24 years.
Now, what do other districts have? Do they have more than one?
So some districts do. I would have to, we could have Laura Heidelmeyer come back with a report. So again, Laura Heidelmeyer is our district nurse, and she can give us better data on what other districts have for
Healthcare
nursing and
providers.
health services, that we can bring that back to you guys.
I would be
I just
interested
want
to see that.
I just want to mention that actually about a year and a half ago, Laura did approach me and Dr. Toll about the needs, the health needs, and her desire to add more nursing staff. So we did add a part-time registered nurse. Jennifer Wernes is her name, and she works a limited amount of hours, but she is a support nurse for Laura. So
Okay.
we've recognized the need to add more actual nursing hours.
And
Not
we
just
increased
health
our hours this year too over what they were last year, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot
Jennifer,
about
yeah.
Jen Wernes, so
Just when they
I
get.
stand corrected.
And when they get to the junior, as a person who has 2 children with EpiPens, when they get to the junior high and high school level, they're carrying them on them. They're self-carrying, self-administering, so it's not as big of a deal as it is at the elementary level.
But I mean, still.
But
in
it
a
is
me-
still a.
Yeah,
it's an
in a
issue.
medical emergency, I mean, an anaphylaxis can, come on instantly or suddenly from a bee sting or a food allergy. And, I think that something we should be looking at is making sure maybe we need more healthcare providers in our district and in our schools. And if it's not bringing in more nurses, maybe training the folks that we have there on different levels of, medical care to make sure that what we're getting, because we've all gotten the school call where it's like, well, I have such and such, in the health room. And half the time we're like, okay, what is it? But I'm sorry, I mean, I was a fire captain for 25 years and a trainer for the Braves for 9 years. And when I got the call that said, your son's having difficulty breathing and he has chest pains that are an 8 out of 10 on a pain scale, my first question is the nurse there? Well, no. I'm like, call 911. I'm on my way. And, like I said, they did a fantastic job.
He's fine.
And-
I'm sorry, is he fine?
He is fine. He
It's
is
okay.
fine.
And going back to where the conversation started with that, the counseling and the health of our kids, I think, is like, that is the key thing. And I was a part of those boards where we got this list. I mean, Todd can probably remember the list. We got it from the superintendent every year. These are the things that we can cut. And now that things have turned around, we have a very exceptional board. I'm very proud of the board I'm on. And it's like, these are the things that we have to put back together. The counselors, the health, health aides. I'm not hung up on the nurse. Enough nursing, you guys are more experts there. But to have someone in the health department from morning to afternoon, open to close, I think is just a natural. I can't believe that past boards even cut that.
Well, and I agree with Art. You don't have to be a healthcare provider to be able to give support to students. So we have guidance counselors. We have, educators that are specialized in different areas. So if we have the opportunity, Sean, to your point, you want to bring on another guidance counselor. We have 4,700 students in the district, and we have 2 supporting the elementary. Absolutely. I completely support it.
Okay.
We can bring back the nurses for another meeting, but what was the other one you had?
So then the other one is we also are looking at hiring a dean of students at Parkview Middle School. I don't think I need to tell you that middle school students can be a challenge. And so we're taking a look at our staffing at Parkview, and we recognize that we really need some assistance with the current Parkview administration with attendance, discipline, RTI, PBIS. And so this is a student-centered position that would alleviate some of the load on Mark, especially Mark DeMay, the principal, and allow him to be more teacher-centered. And we've been talking about teacher evaluations and that process. I know we're going to talk about it more with my evaluation. And so this would help to address some of those concerns that we've been talking about for a while.
I just want, so is there any, well, there's guidance counselors in the middle school.
Yeah, so we have 2 guidance counselors at the middle school.
So they don't have anything to do with any
Well, right now,
Or
I can
kinda
tell you
ish.
that our
This
guidance.
dean of students position wouldn't, I mean, it would be kind of guidance.
Oh, well, absolutely.
Assistance.
When you're
That's what
dealing
I'm trying
with.
to understand.
Right, when you're, it's an associate principal position essentially, that is gonna be, a shorter contract, not working in the summers, a few days in the summer, but not many. Mainly working with students, and any time that you are working with at-risk students, you are providing a lot of guidance. Right now, our guidance counselors are spending too much time on student discipline.
And
And
not
so,
helping
Discipline,
students,
right,
the other students that need a guidance
So-
counselor.
exactly,
Yeah.
so,
Because that's what I'm trying to
Yeah,
get.
yeah.
So they would be able to help, get, my big hang up with or one of my things is to get them into the high schools, trades and things like
Mhm.
that, and summer school and stuff, and to have someone to articulate that to those key kids that, they could probably single out easily and figure out, hey, maybe this pathway would help them find
Absolutely.
a place for themselves. And if that
absolutely.
would be help there, I'd be all for it.
So as you know, we've been a low revenue district for a lot of years. We have a lot of needs. There, we can talk for hours. There are many more needs than the health assistance that we haven't gotten to yet. And so we are proceeding slowly with adding these positions, and I think so far we have done a nice job of adding at our greatest needs, but we certainly can look at the health issues. But right now, we're looking at these two, and we'll be back with more.
Next month.
So we
Does-
have never had a dean of students.
No, we
Oh.
have, well,
I mean, the job is being done, but you'll take away certain responsibilities and put it on this person, kind of like Nick, right?
kind of like Nick, yeah.
Or take things away from other people and give them to Nick.
Where,
It's the Mcgonagall
where are
way.
we with the interventionalists and stuff?
So
Did
you
we
guys
agree?
approved that a
Right,
few
and that
meetings
was-
ago? Right.
And that was how,
Pardon?
how many?
One for each
Oh, how
school,
many? I'm sorry.
right?
So one at each school right now, right?
Okay. I was just getting clarification for someone else.
Yeah, as you heard that, for those of you who have been on the board, you heard that was our
Right,
principal's top need. And so we have addressed that. As a matter of fact, we had a discussion at our administrative council meeting today about what
Right.
we wanted those positions to look like. And so Nick had provided an article, and we had a discussion about that.
Okay, go ahead.
So the dean of students, you said something that kind of caught me off guard because I might be stuck in the 90s. You said that the guidance counselors are dealing with a lot of the disciplinary issues. In my world, that's kind of what the principals
Right.
do. So is it the load so large that between our guidance counselors and our principals that there's a lot of discipline that needs to be dealt with, or are
There's
the
a-
principals not doing it and only the guidance counselors, or like
Oh, no,
what is the
no.
breakup?
So I should say that when there's so much that the principal and assistant principal can't get it done, then they have to use the guidance counselors for assistance.
Yeah, you did
They're
see
taking
that
the
chart,
overflow.
the 16, 17.
I know.
They
Well,
I'll
but
tell you
if
this.
we go back to that was only 14 incidents on that chart. But this isn't just drug and alcohol. This is kids getting sent to the office, right?
They had 7 principal hearings last week. Principal hearings are for incidents that are severe, such as fighting, for drug and alcohol. Those automatically get kicked up to what we call a principal hearing, where the principal has to meet with the
And
parents and the
Is this
student.
just at Parkview?
And that was
That
7
was 7
last week.
at Parkview.
At Parkview.
Did I miss that somewhere?
No,
That's
it's
not in
just
here.
a different.
No, that's not
Okay.
in
That's
there.
a
No, I'm just using it as an example. It's been a challenging year.
Yeah.
No,
Highlight.
we're not, we're just. nobody
So
objects to
this
moving
is
forward
this
with
is not new money. This is money that we already have in our budget. We're just moving it around.
Yeah.
From Fund 73, from our post-retirement benefits fund, to our Fund 10.
So nobody objects to moving forward with these two positions?
No.
Not at all.
Okay. good.
Can I ask what the prioritized needs, because I was looking
Sure.
through 'em, so we did the interventionals, right? We approved that,
Yes.
Yeah,
so that's this whole section right here.
right.
And then we've got additional pupil service support, which is what you're working on right now.
Exactly.
correct?
Exactly.
Okay. Because, I mean, one of them said completed, so I thought,
Yeah, if we could maybe get a completed document maybe at some point
Yeah,
that shows,
Sure.
You know-
or add a column, done, not done,
Yep.
don't need, or
because
something.
that's
You
what I
bet.
was kind of, yeah,
Keep us on
Thinking
task.
about
yeah.
drinking.
Because I had a couple of questions written. Let me see if I can get to where they are.
Okay.
Because I didn't know if we were, just looking at all of these again, because under technology, one of our goals, it said the K-4 purchases, and at last meeting, and apparently at a district PTO meeting about, while district funds have been used to purchase or propose to purchase devices for 512, costs for devices in K-4 have been largely borne by the schools. And so we had talked about that, and then I believe at last meeting, we talked about how that was gonna be. It's like, we're gonna do to 5, we can't do it all. And yet, it's under one of our things here, so that the contradiction of what we're hearing.
So it's just the idea that if we did have additional funds and they didn't get used for all of these other items, that could be a place to spend some of the money. So it's certainly a need, and if we had all the money in the world, we would dedicate it to the K-4 technology. But we didn't automatically go there because of all of these competing needs.
Right, well, what I'm looking at is we're trying very hard to, these were the to prioritize, these were the top ones. And we've kind of been, okay, we're working on this one, we're working on this one. So I just wanted to draw attention to that because we had these two different conflicting reports on how those things were gonna go down. So that was one thing.
Yeah, only because we haven't approved spending any of these
Right,
repurposed
right.
funds on
So I'm
this.
just throwing it out there
yeah.
for whatever. And then, at the bottom, it said the supervision to increase prep time. At some point, I guess, I would like a discussion on that.
I do think we're gonna have to have that discussion sooner than later.
Well, and then,
Are you talking about elementary?
I'm talking about elementary, because
Yes.
I have, minutes and time and about how extra prep time here, and so I have some facts that I had gathered, in regards to that, as far as how it's done now, and how it would, what it would look like, because it appears that some of those library supervision things are already handled in different ways, so and if you guys don't wanna talk about it tonight, cause it's too late, that's fine, but then I want it brought back, cause I have quite a bit of information on it right here. And
Jerry, what things are you looking for here, so I can kind of start doing some background
Okay,
digging up?
well, the one was the K-4 devices, what that looked like, because I know it wasn't the whole amount, but maybe we need to, if that is in our top ones, maybe to say, well, we're gonna do this for the high school, but not below, we need to look at that. That's just another thing for what those numbers exactly would be. And on here, it says $75,000, okay? And then down at the next one is the supervision to increase prep time. One is a cafeteria supervisor and one is an elementary library clerical hours, 10 hours a week. And so those were the two things I had, because right now, the clerical people, the library people do have some built-in times that they aren't really busy, because they're supposed to be available for computer labs, but the teachers sometimes do their own, so there's other things. So I think it just kind of needs to be looked at a little bit, like how those hours are spent. And I'm not against it, I'm just saying some observation of what at the different buildings, because it may look one way at Clarendon and another way at Rolling
It
Hills
does.
and another way.
It's different.
It looks very different. And so I think before we have this discussion with us, we need to get the facts from where they're
So
at.
as we're hiring these new technology specialists, we just approved the new hires at Prairie View and Eagleville and at Clarendon. We're continuing to evolve those positions. So just like we're implementing the instructional coaches for literacy, the ultimate goal is that these technology specialists also work in kind of a coaching, co-teaching capacity, really working with teachers to implement new technologies into their classrooms. So maybe the old model of the librarian sees kids for 30 minutes a week, and then when when the kids leave, then they are just in the library shelving books. Like, that's not the model that we're using anymore, and we're gradually shifting away from that. And so the idea here with this additional clerical hours would be that in addition to the actual instructional time with the technology specialist in the library, maybe a teacher could bring their class for an additional 30 minutes that would really be like just a reading time. And that could be supervised by a clerk or a monitor or some sort of person that would be there in the library, not necessarily leading a lesson, but just giving students an additional time in the library to read, to check out books, allowing that technology specialist to be working with other teachers. And so I know what you're talking about, but yeah, that's.
Just develop it, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? Because it's just from looking at this and then knowing how, you know, just
Mhm.
understand
That,
everything.
while the clerk is putting a Band-Aid on the kid, she'll be holding this library thing. Okay, just saying.
And then, I don't know if this is the place to do it, or later down in the agenda, I don't know. But, because it was a spending issue, apparently we had some money for a music curriculum. And the money ran out. Well, they came, Nick.
No,
they
no,
came, well,
no,
okay,
no,
I'm understanding let me finish for them, and then
Okay.
you can explain, okay?
Sure.
So this music teacher knew, I mean, it's just, you can't know unless you ask, just like the nurse.
Right.
And, I mean, if my kid was
Exactly.
thinking they might be having a heart attack, I would be a little upset. So they came, and this money, but it does say Nick said, so Nick's getting a little, so it says, well, we can't fund this anymore, because we don't have money, so we won't have money for 2 years, because this is the cycle of the, am I right? The cycle of the music curriculum, it's the
Music curriculum is up for adoption
In
in
2
the
years.
2019-2020 school
So
year.
this thing we had is done now, so we've got 2 years. And so now it's like, well, what do you do for these interim years? And the cost of it is, and I don't know the cost, is either $1,500 per school, which would be a total of $9,000, or it's $1,500 for this whole district. I don't know the number. That was the number that was brought to
I
the
do.
PTO, that blah, blah, blah. So you can now explain, and I don't know if this is the place to bring it up, but I think that it's something that kind of needs to happen before next year. It's kind of like the gym thing.
So I can very briefly just say, first of all, let me be clear, this isn't an issue where we were spending money and then took something away.
It was money that was like a grant.
No, it was just a free trial that the company allowed our music teachers to use this online piece of software that helps to teach general music at the elementary level. And so they got the trial. They've been using it without, they told me that they wanted to try it out. I'm open to new things. I said, sure. They started liking it, so we had a demo. I watched the demo. I said, well, let's take a look at the pricing. The pricing is $10,000 per year for the elementary schools, which for a music curriculum is very significant. So a 10-year adoption is $100,000 for one piece of software for elementary general music. And so we did they did the pilot this year. They tried it out. Some of the teachers really like it. I get that. It's great. But I'm spending a lot of money on literacy right now. I wouldn't have budget money to put towards a $10,000 per year expense for elementary music software. So I said to them that it's something we could certainly consider when the adoption comes up. But it's not something that I felt like I could say that, oh yeah, definitely we can go ahead and move forward with that. If that's something that the board wants to spend funds on, that's something that we could look at. But I want to be clear, it's not that the district said they would fund it and then took it away. It's that the company offered for a free trial. Nobody told me the cost up front. Had they told me the cost up front, I might have put the brakes on it a little bit, because that's a pretty significant cost. If you figure we have 2,000 students, $10,000 a year is $5 a kid. We're spending about that on our yearly universal screening tool that we use for math and reading. So to spend that on elementary music software, it's a pretty big investment. I'm not against that, and maybe when we have our curriculum adoption and I have my curriculum funds that are that year just going to music, art, and world language, perhaps we could work that in or talk about it at least. But yeah, that's really where it comes from. So I just want to be clear. It's not that the district gave funding and then took it away.
I mean, you know, I knew, but
Right.
it was, unless you ask, you don't know what the more to the story is. And I guess,
So I think that like there's one teacher in particular at a particular school that you have particular knowledge about that is particularly liking the software and would love to find a way to continue it. And so I think she's pursuing other funding options, knowing that I might not have the funding available through the curriculum department.
Okay, we're gonna move on, to get on with our,
I can
Alright.
talk to you afterwards if you
yeah, we're gonna get more information from them. Next up is unfinished business, the Neola policies.
Okay, so just, I want to clarify that I'm not expecting any action on this big packet tonight, but I wanted to get this to you so we can have a discussion about how you want to proceed. So
Okay.
twice a year, Neola provides us with these updates, and many of the updates are minor, language-oriented, make sure we're in compliance with state or federal law. And so we have a summary here of these policy changes, and then we have the policies that have been updated by Neola. And I went through these with Richard Zimmern, our representative, and so I didn't know how you would want to proceed with these policies. Do you want me to, do we want to go through all of them?
If this is just state mandated, we have to say it this way because they say we do. I don't see any reason to go line item by line item.
But
It's not
there-
gonna change
right.
anything.
But there might be other changes, obviously.
Sure,
there's other
sometimes there's
changes,
language
there's-
that's antiquated, other times they say that it's a policy that is recommended but not required, and that's all right here in
Okay.
the summary, which is the first few pages, maybe first 5 pages.
Okay.
And then the policies follow that, and you can see where the language is changed with the red lines and et cetera, et cetera. So again, I'm not looking for any action tonight. We have to do this twice a year.
Okay.
And so I didn't know how you wanted to proceed. You guys tell me and we'll do it.
As fast as possible.
Yes. If it's state mandated, I don't think we need to go review it.
can we sort them by, these
Yes,
are the
can we
ones,
sort-
sort
yeah.
them by, well, this is the ones you have
This
to do.
is what they're
Sure.
recommending change.
And then the other ones,
and
and
then
then we
this
could
is-
kind of,
And then hit it with a
a little bit once, a
first
few at a
meeting
time
and approve it at the end, the second meeting
Okay.
of the month.
Separate it out.
So you want me to bring it back next month
Yep.
in June, and you want me to sort it by those that are required and then those are recommended.
Correct.
Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yep.
Okay, we can do that.
All right.
It's a lot of policies.
That's why you have all these policy people.
Then we have 6 months to go through the ones that we can decide if we want to change before the next bunch come out.
Well, but these are the only ones.
All right,
that
next
are
up, superintendent's report.
I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Are you
Do
sure?
your thing, yep.
Okay, so the superintendent's report really is all about recognition tonight, so I have been trying to make sure that we recognize community partners and people that have been contributing to the district more often, and I've been writing letters to people and saying, on behalf of myself and the Board of Education, or the school board, I want to thank you for this or that, and that really I should probably let you guys know when I do that. And so I have Scott Gillette, who just gave up his position as president of FOMA. I have a letter for him. And I also have a letter for Kim Bugel from, who's from Brook Life Church. I wanted to make sure you're aware that, if you recall, a few months ago, we talked about how Brook Life Church was going to establish an angel fund for the district for families who could not pay their lunch accounts. And so they just gave us $2,322.86 to cover all the families who had a negative lunch account balance. So I have a letter.
Mine is negative every other month.
Well,
So hopefully they didn't.
I think those.
They paid for our kids' lunch.
Yeah.
Garnish your board payment next
So, and then, Mary, if you could, I put my name and your name on it, so if you could sign those two. And then, so if you want to look at them, you can, otherwise just pass them down. Then there's a memo in the packet about, one of the things when I'm doing my superintendent's listening session, our staff is saying that it'd be nice to be recognized more. Some of them understand that we're never going to be able to pay them a lot of money, but they want to know that they're appreciated and they appreciate any type of recognition. So we have a number of staff that have reached certain points with us as far as number of years of service. And so we reward them. Once they reach 20 years, we give them a gift card for $20, and 25 years, $25, et cetera, et cetera. So we have several people that have reached 20 years of service in the district this year, a couple at 25, 5 at 30, and John Haddon has been with the Mcgonagall Area School District for 40 years this year, which is just outstanding. And so I have
Where does he, what's his,
well, district maintenance.
okay.
So you've probably seen him around,
Yeah.
and a great guy, and really has done a nice job for us for many, many years. So we have their supervisor give them, and it's in a nice little card, the gift card at end of the year meeting. So the principals or the supervisors will give them and recognize them at their building. But I thought it'd be nice if the board also did something, and so I have a little note card here with a message. It says, on behalf of the school board and administration, we want to congratulate you for 20 years of service with the Mcgonagall Area School District. We thank you for your hard work and dedication. Best wishes for a successful finish to the school year. Sincerely, Sean McNulty, Superintendent of Schools. Then, do you guys want to sign each of these cards?
I'd love to.
Do you
All
have
right.
lists of all of those that at the end of the year, each year, and how many, is that in here?
It's in here.
So,
It's on here.
just
Eight,
this
eight,
year's
eight.
list, this
Right.
year's list. But I guess I haven't shared that with you the past 3 years, and I thought maybe I should be
Oh,
doing that
I skipped
from
up
now on.
construction.
So if you guys just want to sign on the top there, that'd be great. There's several of them, so you'll be, I should have done this at the start of the meeting. I apologize.
It's all right.
Was not thinking ahead.
That's all right, we'll make it work.
My bag of pens is in the car.
And then I want to mention,
Thank you very much. Pencil will.
sixth grade, I know many of you have been a part of the school speech judging for a number of years. We did have a state champion this year. So Zoe Ein-Eichner, and I even asked Sean Waller how to pronounce that, and I couldn't remember now. Ein-Eichner, sixth grade student at Big Bend, just won the state competition a couple of weeks ago, and now she'll be competing at the next level. So we want to congratulate her. I've already sent her a congratulatory note. I wanted to check to see if you had any questions about Tri-M. We are working on seeing if there's interest in keeping that Tri-M honors music group. So you got that email last week. So we're addressing that. You probably saw your WASB legislative newsletter talked about cuts in the federal funding for the Department of Education. We don't have the details yet, so there's a headline today across the country. There's headlines. Let's wait and see how that's going to impact us before we talk any more about that. And then we still don't have any information about the state budget. The Joint Finance Committee has not taken up
It's
education
sounding a lot
funding.
better, though. I mean, it sure seems like they're throwing in at least 200.
We're hopeful. I've been disappointed before, so I don't want to sound cynical, but
You are.
I'm cynical.
And then what do you, I have a question.
Sure.
One of the things that popped up on the WASB notices today, if you guys are all signed up for their 17 emails I send every week.
They do send a lot.
Is that DeVos is doing some speech tonight
Yes.
about expanding voucher programs and
Yes.
unveiling the education plans of President. So what do you know about that? I don't know.
So I don't really, tomorrow is when we'll get the details, and that was sort of a headline today, I think, in the Journal Sentinel also, how the federal funding was cut drastically, 13% or something like that. I think we have to wait to see what is being cut, and then how that would impact our district. So we would be really, really concerned if Title I funding, for example, would be cut. That would not help us. That would hurt us. And so there's some other federal funding that we're concerned about, but let's wait and see if those are being included in there.
Now, that's
The
just a
expansion,
proposal, it's not a.
right, and then of
Yeah,
course the
what-
Congress gets the
Yeah,
finals.
what's the process? So,
So,
Those two budgets.
so the House would probably tackle the budget first, and then once they put together a budget plan, then it would go to the Senate, and then where they disagree, they would have joint meetings between the House and the Senate. So that could be a while.
yeah.
I was disappointed. The Department of Education, each year for the last as many years as I can remember, has always, for the 6th grade student presidential awards, the president always writes a letter of congratulations. And so President Bush and President Obama all provided these letters for our 6th grade students who are earning the presidential award. And we just got a letter from the Department of Education saying that there would not be one this year. And
Nobody can sign.
and I don't know.
That's
That's not a budget cut, that's just, I think, a lack of organization there.
I think you're right.
It's just a letter it's not
Yeah, that's-
individualized.
It's all just
well,
printed.
someone has to write out all those
Listen, I
letters.
received 2 letters from Paul Ryan, and they're
There's
both
not a
signed differently.
computer.
So I'm pretty sure there's an assistant somewhere that can sign those suckers.
Yeah, so I don't know, that was disappointing, but, so it's best just to wait, and when we get more concrete information, then we'll see if it impacts us.
We could do it and
I'm writing on you now.
give them.
And the last thing I had in the packet was that Journal Sentinel article from Alan Borsick. I don't know if you catch his columns
Yeah, I
on
read
Sunday.
that.
Yeah.
He's from Marquette University, and he often writes, or he always writes about educational issues, oftentimes more MPS related, but this one was a little broader and talked about mental health and how that's pervasive across the region. And that was sort of connected to what we were talking about with the guidance counselor. That's why I threw it in there. And that's all I have.
So you have board member questions?
I have one,
Sure.
because we have had many discussions here tonight, and obviously people know things about different things than other people. And so, and it's probably just me, but I'm bringing the question up. How would you like these questions be addressed? Art and brought up the situation with the nurses, and so I, in turn, brought the information about the music, and it just seems that for some people, certain things are more important and they'd rather spend more time on them, and that maybe you'd like them brought up at a different time. So I would like to know so that I don't have to feel like I'm monopolizing. So I just am feeling that way right now, and so it's my question to you all.
I think bringing things up at the board meeting are fine, but if it's something that's not on the agenda, then we leave time for them to get more information and bring it back to the next meeting and put it on the agenda.
And I certainly think, there's,
I have no
and
problem
I've
bringing
done
it up,
this, is to communicate prior or in between the meetings with appropriate people via email or even by phone call to answer certain questions that, you may just have a particular.
Well, and the thing of it is,
Interest
some of these questions that I bring up do not come up until the packet comes out, which is one day before the meeting comes out. There is really no time to contact
Yeah.
people in between. It applies
I
with
do
what
not
it is.
see anything wrong with anybody bringing anything up. If people are on this board and don't put aside Tuesday or Monday nights to sit here and listen and help the district, they should find another job. So I could care less if we're here till 12 every Monday. And if we have something on the agenda that says board questions, well then we'll all save it for board questions, and then we'll have to go back into our agendas and go back into the information. So, again, I think it's
That's
done well, and I have no problem with staying forever.
I have no problem.
That's
with
We
me.
would prefer not ever, forever, I should say. But, so, don't hesitate to contact me via email or text or phone call if you have questions. That's never a problem. I think you guys know me well enough that you've all asked me questions, and eventually we get you answers. And it's not a problem to contact me on the weekend. I know the packet didn't come out until Friday. That's why we tried to get it in your hands physically. We've been really, really busy. Spring's a crazy time, and so the packets are coming out a little later. I have no problem delivering them on Friday afternoon if that needs to happen. No problem at all. But don't hesitate to contact me with questions, and so you can ask on Monday nights at this point in the meeting too. It's fine.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Citizens' comments? Nothing?
No.
All right, motion to move in executive session. I'll make the motion.
Second?
Who wants it?
Angie can have.
Andy can have it. All right. Jerry, can you do roll call?
Todd Clemens?
Yep.
Chair Erica Connor?
Yes.
Mary Diemore?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Art?
If needed, yes.
Craig? Excused? Jeff?
Yes.
Jill?
Yes.
Jerry, yes.
All right. Anybody need a break?
Did everybody get the triad? I just wanted to make
Yeah.
sure
I
that you all
did.
received it.
In the
Okay,
mail.
in the mail, at home.
Amanda.
Get it yet.
I guess
Who got a hold of it?